Good evening, morning, afternoon, whatever applies to you, and welcome back to yet another EuroLeague. I am joined, as always, or nearly always, by the returning, hopefully fully recovered Mr. Keire, and, of course, Nymaera, to discuss all things LEC, and maybe even, well, definitely even, a bit of NLC. Yes, I know, everyone's favourite redheaded stepchild of the ERL scene. But before we do that, of course, it is time for my patented Would You Rather. Now, I won't go into details, but I'll just tell the audience that Nymaera desperately tried to get us to delete the intro permanently as well. He said, I
not
hate
permanently.
it. I don't want it.
I just know
Let's
that
get rid
people
of
tune
it.
in for like the first 30 seconds, and if they don't hear the first topic by then, they tune out. So I was like, well, let's talk about like the NLC drama now with an NLC caster. Oh, it
Hey,
didn't work out for scheduling.
all
I
I'll
thought, wow, that's the
say
current meta.
is Nymaera hates us. He hates the show. He hates the viewers.
Whoa,
And
whoa, whoa, whoa,
it is what
whoa.
it
At
is.
least I know I always have a home here. Regardless of what happens with other podcasts, I can always come home here.
Anyway, moving on from my Nymaera's brief backstabbing, let's do my pasta Would You Rather. Right,
Swear to
so,
God.
Keire,
Would you rather betray your two best friends in esports for checks notes, a bag of
packet of
shells?
Watsits, or, yeah, would you rather invent something revolutionary, in brackets, outside of the medical field, so it can't be, something life-saving or cure for cancer or whatever, or thwart a super high stakes terrorist attack? So you're saving like hundreds of lives, maybe even like thousands of lives. So something revolutionary could be travel based, could revolutionize how we, whatever, get from A to B, how we produce food, how we produce whatever. Just something completely revolutionary of your choosing, I suppose. Or you partake as the hero, essentially, of thwarting a very high stakes terrorist attack. So you're saving, hundreds or low thousands. Let's say 9/11 or less. That's the level we'll go.
Can I
9/11
just say,
or less.
I've played enough Metal Gear to know, right? Okay, that like in one game you're a hero, the next game you're a villain. Okay, so see the invention, right?
Are you saying that you'd have to balance out saving everyone by being the terrorist the following week, or what is the
But
analogy?
anyway, a psycho-hypnotic version of myself may have been the person who trained the terrorists to make the attack, and then only through me knowing the terrorists, I was the one able to take it down. You know what I mean? So anyway, okay, what extent does the invention go to? As in, like, can it, for example, if I say like teleportation, right? Can it be like I have a teleportation glove?
The glove of teleportation from the Act 1 of Divinity Original Sin 2, which allows you to buy...
Yes, the crocodile.
Yeah, you can invent a teleportation glove. Yes, that is on the cards.
So if I also then go for like faster than light travel, can I set the medium for said faster than light travel?
I don't want to get too into the weeds here, but I think it has to be technically possible, and I believe
that is technically possible.
Okay,
Wait, hang on.
Well,
faster than light travel. Wow, we don't
I
have a
don't
proof
think
of
that
concept.
is true.
No. I'll say what I mean is not in terms of distance, but in terms of displacement. Right? Okay. And yeah,
all I'm saying is I don't want to steal the trophy from Joe Rogan from biggest platform of misinformation, and as we're obviously in the same sort of tier as viewership and listenership.
Okay, so I'll be sensible with my limitations. I would choose invention regardless, right? And my invention would be either it would be one of the two. It would either be some device that allows like atmospheric reconstruction, right? Because here it goes. If global warming is or isn't real, or does or doesn't exist, doesn't matter. My invention allows for the reconstruction of the atmosphere, right? Second, so if it doesn't exist, okay, it does it anyway. And if it does exist, you've just saved 7 billion people without it being medicine, right? Second of all, it allows for the prognition of human civilization across the stars. As in, like, you can go to the moon and create, like, an atmosphere and stuff there to allow humans to, like, ensuring that as bad as things get, human life will be able to extend beyond the field of the human medium. therefore extending the human existence even beyond the limitation of Earth for the like saving people without it being medical.
Damn, I thought I was about to checkmate you, but that's actually that's a good point. I was going to say,
Oh,
surely it'd be better to just create a device which allows you to travel near the speed of light safely, and then when it is time that the planet's overpopulated or whatever, you could set up a base. But yeah, if you can't create an atmosphere reliably, yeah, yours would be more useful in that regard. And then as time goes on and you're able to do that, the natural progression of high speed travel will probably somewhat catch up anyway. Yeah, no, that's a good one. I can't lie. What are you thinking, Nymaera?
Oh, pretty easy. Nuclear fusion. Just get it done. Like, that would solve so much. You get nuclear fusion
Boring.
done. No. You might think that, but legit, everything coming from. I mean, it's either that. There are a couple of other things. Some which kind of verging on sci-fi, right? Inventing some kind of technology which reduces the need for rare earth elements in semiconductors. So it somewhat democratizes and spreads out the power of computing across the world, because I think that fixes a whole lot of geopolitical issues across the world right now, and also stops a lot of the awful things happening, for instance, like the Congo and elsewhere, which have just been ravaged for their natural resources. So something kind of like a revolutionary kind of semiconductor advancement, that'll be one thing. Or some cheap, clean, easy way to deal with plastic waste, which is building up in the ocean, which is also another real threat. Yeah, all of those things would significantly impact the well-being of the Earth, people on it, both people I know and elsewhere.
Yeah, but if you've got Kira's device, you can just create a new Earth somewhere else, you know, so it doesn't matter. Fuck it, screw it. Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, if you're going down that road, yeah, I guess something which, I mean, like nuclear fusion obviously goes a lot in this direction anyway, but yeah, something that basically means it requires very little energy / fuel to create mass amounts of usable energy / fuel. That's obviously well up there. I kind of like Kira's idea. I'm not going to lie. Maybe I co-signed the patent on that device.
Can I just say, mine's is technically cheating, because I'll just tell you right now, right? There are lots of ways of like people theorizing, what do you call it, like the creation of atmospheres and all that. And there's loads of technology that we have that we could like theoretically like do.
I know terraforming takes so much energy.
And this is the problem. They're all bottlenecked at just energy. Like that's the problem.
Yeah,
it's like how
I saw a really funny clip of Musk on Rogan being like, "Oh, we could just like, you know, heat it. It's just you got to heat it by a certain amount of degrees," and it's like, well, you realize to heat up an entire planet's surface by X amount of degrees and to like maintain an atmosphere, it's fucking ridiculous.
Would require all existing fuel on the planet already to do it.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you know, you just have to like create like your own miniature sun at that point and keep it contained. It's just utterly unfathomable at that point. I mean, not that the idea of kind of multi-planetary civilization isn't a very entertaining one, but terraforming planets is far beyond our economic output right now, really. I mean, technically there might be ways that's possible, you know, like somehow get like a giant water ice asteroid, fling it into a planet and melt it so you get some atmospheric stuff in there. But actually trying to be able to trying to stably do that is very, very difficult.
The old space slingshot to get giant rocks into it. Yeah, no. But
well, I mean that's a whole bunch of sci-fi settings have gone into what happens when space mining and asteroid mining becomes a thing, right? Because if you could just drag over a rare earth element asteroid near Earth, that is the entire like equation just completely changed, right, for Earth technology.
I mean, let's put it this way. I recently was like, you know what? I don't need a new computer because I've had my computer for, you know, a while, but it's still relatively new. It's still relatively good parts, whatever. But I've seen all the memes online about how expensive RAM is, you know, and I was like, for the first time, I was like, you know what? I'm actually going to see how expensive RAM is. Like, it can't be like the memes. I went, it's insane. It's actually insane. Yep. Like the RAM that I bought, this PC, like 4 years ago or whatever, it's got 128 gig of RAM in. I think the actual cost of that in the I wanted to future proof it. That was the thing. Is like
is that like $1,000 now at that point?
Well, exactly. I was like, I'm not going to buy a new computer for a long time, so I'm just going to get the BIS specs and everything. Basically, you know, it had a 3900 Ti or whatever, like all the best parts that were available at the time. So I put shitloads of RAM in it. But I think the actual price of that RAM when it was broken down on the line item was like 250 at most for the RAM. And now, yeah, it's like a grand. If I wanted that amount of RAM now, it would probably be over $1,000, which is fucking bonkers.
Ridiculous.
So yeah, I mean, even now, like the cost of energy or power usage, and that's just basically to fuel AI, as far as I understand, and all this sort of new tech that's been got. Yeah, so the idea of trying to fucking manually change the atmosphere of a planet using energy or whatever is kind of ridiculous. Whatever. I'll just say I'll thwart the next 9/11 style attack, and they'll make movies about me, and I'll be the greatest human ever. So there you go. I'll take that. Easy.
Oh, someone had to pick the other option, didn't they?
Exactly. Don't worry. I'm all over it. Right. Speaking of heroes, NLC. Let's start there. Everyone's favorite ERL is having a very good week, an excellent week. For those of you who haven't been living under a rock, yes, I am being very facetious, and you've probably seen a million different tweets and comments from people who've been involved with the NLC, either very recently or historically or whatever, and it is a complete shit show. Everything from talent being ghosted, people being told they've got jobs, like see you Monday kind of thing, and then just never replying to them again and never asking to speak to them again. People being told,
I'll tell you that.
People being told they're getting promotions and they're getting fired just a mere week later, and obviously getting rid of all, or most of, I should say, the very. I think loyal is actually probably a good word here, because I think for a lot of people they didn't even necessarily need the NLC, but a lot of people got their sort of casting chops from the NL. I mean, Nymaera obviously is, and Sam has also done NLC, as has Hitbrain, as has Georgia. Like you'll have seen lots of these people talking about it this week anyway. Then they all have their own stories to tell. Some more willing to tell than others. Others will just keep it to themselves and move on, and try and be. I don't want to use words like professional or not, because when you have been so badly stung, I think all bets are off at that point, and you should be able to say whatever the hell you want, basically, as long as it's truthful. So yeah, basically, it's a big old shit show, and the big questions are: how did we get here, and what do we think of the current situation? Obviously, the main response from people has basically been "fuck it, nuke it, just destroy it" at this point, which is obviously an overly used sort of meme that people like to throw around when these kind of things happen. But unironically, when you look at the state of the NLC at the moment, wouldn't be the worst idea in the world. I mean, we are now at the state where you've got people like Forsen doing meme teams with Diamond players. You've got full teams just full of Diamond players playing from their literal bed with like a laptop with a fucking one of those IBM little mouse pad trackers or whatever. Like, I mean, it is just so beyond the realms of like integrity at this point that it does need at minimum a complete reboot, you'd think. But yeah, Nymaera, obviously you've been intimately involved in NLC over the years. What are your thoughts on the whole debacle?
Yeah. So worth noting, I was not involved with Leagues GG. However, there was a lot of red flags as they were coming in, because they started doing the changeover as I left, because I was on LPL going into 2023. So just to recap exactly who said what, I suppose. So news, I think, actually started with Aragon saying, look, I've been reaching out to Leagues GG for forever at this point to get myself paid from... I think at that point it was from 2024 even. I don't even know if it was all of last year. But trying to chase up late payments. And eventually got to the point where he had to go public with it, saying that, you've been ghosting me for forever on payment. Now, it's worth noting, and this is just in general with this, folks, a lot of what you will hear here is not ridiculous in ERLs, as in this happens in ERLs, and in fact when it's in a non-English language broadcast it's more common, and I'd argue even in some cases potentially even worse from some of the stuff which I heard from various ERLs around the place, and this is over many years as well. So this comes in the context of things kind of continually getting worse from the NLC, and this is bad, and it should be really criticized. And also the fact that people are coming forwards with stories, particularly in the English language casting, is very, very rare, because whenever you go public with this stuff, you burn bridges. And a lot of the time people don't want to hire you again if you cause issues like this, or at least that's the fear. As to whether that actually happens, mixed stories on that. So Aragon basically wasn't paid, chased them up for payments. They didn't get back to him forever, went public with it, and Leagues GG, which were the company which came in basically after 2022 when Freaks for You came in for a year and then dumped it. Leagues GG came in, and they started shitting their pants when they saw that tweet, so I've heard. And then after that things got even worse for them. And I wonder actually whether Aragon planned this or not, because it definitely doubled down on a lot of things, because all the news came out on the same day. And if they did, if that is the case, well played. You've really created a shitstorm, and this is a good thing. So now it means that the company and people have to pay attention to it. But basically what we found out after was Troublelink and Hitbrain, who've both been on the NLC for 7-8 years. I mean, Hitbrain's been there for nearly 10 years in the UK scene, which is such a long time in esports in general, especially within one region, within one esport is an incredibly long time. Loyal is the right word for it, Rich. I'd absolutely agree. And I think particularly for tier 2, having that kind of loyalty is just unheard of. You just don't get that within ERLs. Both of them, after all their longevity, being the longest standing casters on this ERL, were let go from the NLC by Discord DM mid-split. Mid-split, they were let go through a Discord DM. So not even, a really kind of like well-deserved send-off or anything. This is amidst a split in which Leagues GG, obviously, this is their second year running it now. They ran it last year as well. No, sorry, they've run it for a while. I forget the exact timeline of when they came in. I think they came in 23s. They've actually been at it for a little while now. But yeah, effectively, things have been awful this split. Massive delays, huge production issues going across the board, which have slowed down the actual games because the actual broadcast has had issues. The actual broadcast itself has been on a shoestring for a little while, and it's been very poor quality. So Trouble and Hitbrain kind of came out with this about this saying like, yo, we were just let go by Discord DM. I don't even know what the hell they're going to do about other casters, by the way, because note on this one, folks, they weren't getting paid much. They were getting paid terrible rates, even less than last year, I believe, which was already very low. I mean, when I was on NLC under Freaks, I think day rate was something like 200 or 250, and it's gone. Wait, was that even it? And then it's gone down from there. Like it's gone down. So the cash is not livable. It's not a livable rate, especially when you're only doing it for 1 or 2 days a week, especially so things get really poor with that. So obviously that all came out, that exploded, and then everyone else started coming out with their stories too. Now I've not worked with LEC GG myself, like I was saying, so I don't have the direct information on that. But Archeron came out effectively and said that they promised him a job and they just completely ghosted him, and that was after last year when he was doing a lot of things of the head of content.
Well, wait, going by his tweet, it's even worse. Basically, he was looking and talking with other people about various roles or whatever, and in his words, they specifically told him not to bother because he not only had a job with them, but he would get a promotion with them. And then he was not given a promotion. He was fired instead. So, yeah.
And, like, I know that, I mean, last year, they had too big a talent team. They had too many casters, and sure, I can understand some people being let go. But because of just size of team and the amount of show days, you weren't really getting enough time for anyone, really. I think they tried to pander to too many people. But obviously, they treated him like shit. And Artron was treated like shit by Freaks for You, so I thought it couldn't get worse for him. But apparently, it's definitely not been fantastic. And then one of the producers as well, a potential producer as well, Joe FX, who is very, very well known. This guy is very good. He ended up doing the Tyler One Invitational, which, obviously, I'm sure a bunch of people have seen that. This guy's an absolute wizard. I've worked with him before on LJL, actually, way back in the day. But he was saying that effectively he was potentially going to come in as producer. I can't remember how things fell through. I don't have the tweets up in front of me, but they basically handed off production to someone who had zero experience with League. And someone else was saying effectively that this listing was put up somewhere for something like 7K a month remote work. So they're getting paid like absolute bang for someone who has no experience with League. That immediately sets up red flags in terms of, if this is true, of course. I mean, I don't actually have the first hand on that. But going off of what Joe was saying, this person gets paid a lot and doesn't have much experience with League. This guy, obviously Joe didn't say the exact rates that he was on, but I've heard, from elsewhere that potentially this person's getting paid an awful lot. So all in all, you have all this different stuff with other people saying, hey, I haven't been paid and whatever. And then also Jamada chiming in. Jamada has said an awful lot about this, effectively saying that the desk, which is now completely based out of Denmark, is nepotism hires. Now, I don't think all of that's true because I think that Emprez is actually very good. But I think that almost everyone else on that desk has no experience with League or is not fit for for that job. And if you've watched the show over the course of this, I think that you can tell that they've certainly struggled. Now, I don't know them personally. I'm not here to like shit on broadcasts or whatever, but I don't know what the hiring process was like. But some people have come out and said, look, they're basically friends of the producer, which does bring up some red flags as well. This all coming out in the same day is horrible news for the NLC at Leagues GG, but especially after a year where Lost Ratones have now left and Leagues GG were also in a situation saying, oh, come join our league. Lost Ratones will still be here, despite the fact that Keire said on stream, he talked about this just the other day, saying that he had told them a month in advance, no, we're not going to be staying. Don't tell other teams that we're going to be staying. They did that anyway and said you can make content with them. So that was them intentionally lying about that too and not paying. All in all, it is an absolute shit show, and NLC has continued to go from worse to worse. And while, I expect some hardships to be somewhat commonplace within ERLs when you don't have much funding or whatever, apparently a lot of this is not due to lack of funding. A lot of this is just due to mishandling, which is very, very distressing to see, because I don't think I think for now, this is the worst time to be a league caster outside of Tier 1 ever. I don't think there's ever been a worse time to do it. And
a player as well, by the way. Like, just being in the ERLs in general is just not... I mean, obviously the joke is not being in LEC isn't even sustainable over a long enough period of time. But there's no light at the end of the tunnel for, like, fans of the NLC right now. Like, I don't know what you do with this. And as I said before, the thing is, NLC, it's not like NLC is this really good watchable product and then it's like, oh no, now all this drama behind the scenes has come out and what does that mean for this cool product that people love? It's like the NLC is dog shit. Like, it is actually bottom of the barrel crap. It is awful. And that has been not just because they've obviously dropped the ball massively when it comes to production and handling talent and so on, but the teams and players they've allowed in their league are a joke. You will take part in more difficult clash tournaments with your mates on a weekend if you're high enough elo. Like, some of these teams are just, they're not professional players. They are just random humans who have League of Legends accounts. Like, it is crazy. Like, the level of standards that have allowed to drop off the basis that, oh, we know that, viewership can be, like, more important as far as making money or whatever than how good teams are. Like, look at Lost Ratones, look at the meme teams that we have. But basically, it was just Lost Ratones carrying the league. Like, all these other teams, like the Yankos lineup, the Ruddy lineup, they weren't really bringing anything. Like, I don't want that to sound harsh, but in terms of, like, viewership or, like, now the NLC is watchable and gets good. No, it wasn't. It would never have. It was just all Lost Ratones. All these side stories and rivalries that tried to be built up were never actually successfully built up at all. No one cared about the league at all other than watching LR and hypothesizing, can they win EU Masters? And then they win EU Masters, like, can that team that plays in NLC be competitive in LEC? And then we got to sort of see how that went. That was it. Those were the only storylines. Those were the only good players in the league, if we're real, in terms of, like, high echelon players, because it's a very unserious league, and it has been for a very long time. I think the last time I can remember NLC being a semi-serious league was back when Fnatic had their academy team, and you also had a couple of other academy teams and a couple of other good teams in there, and they were getting consistently
I think
decent...
the year after that, in 22, it was fine too, but 21 is the year that you're talking about.
Yeah.
22, at least we still had, like, XL having their academy team in there, and we did have Astralis talent, which was, like, it was on the downswing because, Fnatic Rising had left at that point, but I think that was probably the last year where, maybe 23 was okay too. Either way, slowly slid down.
NLC used to get a couple of teams who... I mean, the argument used to be, it's not fair. NLC deserves more EU Masters slots because of how well NLC teams were performing at EU Masters at a certain point in time. You'll never hear that now. Like, no one's calling for that now. So yeah, I mean, the league is just a joke anyway, and it's run by people who do not seem to understand the product that they're managing and how to get out of this horrible hole. I mean, Keire, I don't know how many thoughts you have on this one, but, if you were commissioner of the NLC, what would you do with this absolute shit show?
I just don't care. Really, everyone made their bed; they can lie in it. Like, they did.
By the way, like, sometimes I might be, whatever, great, great contribute. I actually think that's a spot on take, by the way. Like, if genuinely, like, for me, I do not care at all. By the way, like if
I
NLC,
care about the people affected.
oh,
and,
of
like,
course,
I'm
of
not-
course,
I-
of
I-
course.
I-
But like,
sorry, just to highlight
yeah,
for that, I can come across callous.
no, but of course, in terms of the products, I mean, like the thing is, NLC is not this grand historical institution where it's like, damn, remember back in the
Yeah.
day, like, and it's
When
it's
OGN
always
died, I was actually
been,
upset. Like
yeah.
when Riot Korea took over the production and the sister teams ended and OGN, that was I thought Pandora like that was like you seen the world around you and they actually got Pandora and they stuck her back in the box. Like you thought the fucking genie was out the bottle, but they actually managed to cram the fucking genie back in. Like the whole idea of sister teams being gone in Korea and like Kespa not being the dominant force. Like imagine if someone who's watched StarCraft and then watching OGN, then when that just going away, how unthinkable that was. Like I couldn't believe it. I was like 2015 rolled round, and I was like, what are they doing? NLC, I'm just kind of like, thank God it's gone because maybe like,
Well, it's not gone. That's the worst thing.
I think
no, but and maybe this causes if everyone kind of like tries to like stand their ground, they won't. You can cause like a death, and then in like the space that's made, you can try and build something that like with better fundamentals, like better people. It's like that whole thing of out east, in Russia, that guy. I'm pretty sure he owned Navi. He like used to also run the tournaments as well. Remember that, Rich? He was like the oligarch from Kazakhstan.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I know who
He
you're
actually
talking
owned Navi, I think, at one point in time.
Not just Navi, if memory serves.
Yeah, but he also owned like VP and stuff, and like ended up whatever. That's all by the by, right? When he stopped funding,
Usmanov.
actually got
Was it Usmanov?
Whatever his name
Anyway,
is. But when he stopped funding, all the big tournaments kind of went away. But in the East, it actually got healthier because the grassroots scene and stuff really exploded, and things like Dota and like loads of like other smaller organizations were able to come through and begin to like operate. And like smaller events and stuff were able to like come through for like a time period. But it's by the by.
Yeah. By the way, does Veteran still work at NLC? I assume.
I don't think he's on the broadcast. He was there.
No, I know. He was doing something to do with like restructuring the format.
Fair. I'm actually not sure if he. I think he
That was
might
a
have
while
moved on
ago.
to a non. I think he was a non-broadcast role at NLC.
Yeah, no, he was for
I don't
sure.
know.
But this is all going back, so I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't know whether that was last year or the year before. I think it was maybe last year. That's not entirely sure. So don't quote me on that. But yeah, I mean, in terms of my overall thoughts on what this means for the NLC, what does this mean for Europe? I mean, obviously, why are we talking about it on this as well? Because NLC has been a part of a pipeline, especially for broadcast, although broadcast in general right now is a pretty shit place to be. Trust me, I know, because that's my whole life. And, you know, I spent my first years working on NLC and then the leagues which fed into it as well. So UKLC, UKEL, and then working around the Benelux Open Tour, etc., etc. So this obviously not Benelux, sorry, that would have been the like. In fact, actually, the Leagues GG ended up running the extra Nordic regions before the Freaks took over. But yeah, it sucks for the broadcasters because I think particularly for Trouble and Hitbrain and for the people involved in the broadcast who are negatively impacted by this, in some ways, I think you shouldn't expect your role to be permanent on a broadcast. You must earn a right on a broadcast. You are not guaranteed things like that. I think that is a good mindset to have. But there is a stark difference between that and then being mistreated to the level which NLC has mistreated its casters. Now, I think this was actually the case back in Freaks for You. And we as a group of casters back then, our NDAs have now timed out, but they made us sign NDAs because I think they were quite worried about what we'd say at that time. We didn't think it would get worse than them. I think, sadly, it has. I think it has gotten worse than that. And I think it's a testament to the tenacity of the casters which have remained on the broadcast for what they've managed to do. But it is a crying shame that the NLC has come to this. I mean, it's a good place to nurture new talent, more on the broadcast really than on the actual player side of things of recent years. But obviously, I think, as we were saying, it's been a pretty bit difficult time. I think overall, I think it just really damages the reputation of ERLs and Riot within Europe, even though Riot don't have a hand in this. The fact that this is kind of happening under their watch, I'm sure this has to be on their radar now. And I don't know what power they have to stomp authority on this situation, but this reflects very, very poorly on them. I mean, we've had a number of ERLs kind of go under in recent years, and it wouldn't surprise me if more happened beyond this point. But obviously, you know, LVP moved out as a tournament organizer from Spain, from the Superliga. Prime League financially has been in a bit of a dire spot for a little while. We don't know what will happen with them. NLC has just imploded time after time. So it's worth talking about this and just kind of updating people who might not be interested in this for now, just to see, okay, look, the bedrock of tier 2 and the grassroots scene below that within Europe is in a dire state right now
Oh, it's
because of
awful.
mismanagement, and just years and years of just people umming and ahhing and pulling in the wrong direction. And with NLC kind of having Cage Rule before this and lost returns, we thought, well, okay, will this lead to some kind of uptick in growth and viewership and blah blah blah? No, absolutely not. They completely fumbled the ball. They've ran out of money. I think they did points last year. I actually don't know whether they're out of money now. I think who knows at that point. But they're definitely mistreating people and mishandling themselves. So it's a fucking crying shame to see.
Also, just another one of many examples of like, just because you're in a league with a team or something, that is not, there's not much valor to be stolen there. Like, you can't really leech off that to build your own brand. It doesn't really work unless mountains move. Like, just because you're in LCK, even if you're OK Brion or something, like, you don't get to play T1 every week. So you're not just going to get some vicarious massive increase in brand awareness and viewership and so on because T1 exists in your league. Like, yeah, it helps a little bit because, you know, as ties rise, so do all the things within it. But it's like, yeah, you have to be able to stand on your own 2 feet. I think that's undoubtedly I don't want to call it a failed experiment because from LR's point of view, you know, things somewhat worked out. There's some successes to be had. But yeah, the ERLs in general are in a horrible state right now. And it just seems like a massive downward spiral from which I don't really see how it gets fixed other than one of you suggested, I believe, on the previous show, ultimately they're probably going to go back to a Challenger League model, which wouldn't even necessarily be the worst thing, at least from a viewership perspective. The best thing, obviously, is if you can have a region-by-region scene which is popular, thriving, that brings in national attention, whether it's France, Spain, Germany, whatever, and all these leagues are self-sufficient, but clearly that is, I can't see a world unless the Saudis come in and just click their fingers and just pump trillions of dollars into all these leagues that's going to happen. So yeah, it is a bit ominous, unfortunately, but I also think kind of inevitable. I do think games have a lifespan, not to go too, you know, doomer or full circle on this, but I think the tier 2 scene suffering is part of identifying where we are perhaps maybe on the lifespan. So it is what it is. But anyway, speaking of...
By the way, just one quick one,
Yeah.
just before we move on. Tier 2 is struggling everywhere, right? As someone who watches Tier 2 Korea, right, Nymaera, I'm going to give you one. LDL 2026.
Well, LDL is in a bit of a different spot because LDL had so many match-fixing allegations that they deleted
Yeah,
the
but you know,
broadcast for a while, and then
yeah.
that's also got like Chinese laws involved too, because basically if you're under 18, there's a limit. It's like you can't really play professionally if you're under 18 in China, which just changes things. But obviously, your point is valid, but there are external circumstances.
I know there's external, as in like, but there's like, they've just got different factors affecting them, right? But China probably had the largest Tier 2 scene in the world. And to the best of my knowledge, I wasn't going to watch it this year. It hasn't started back up again. So like,
wait, shit, really? I actually, you know, I hadn't checked in on that. Surprisingly,
yeah, like no, again, a massive thing like that, Rich, because it's just not native to us, and nobody really has their finger on the pulse. To the best of my knowledge, I don't think it's started back up again.
It's not on Wikipedia. I haven't seen anything on BL.
Same.
Funnily enough, I probably would have been notified about that because I mean, I've got people in chat which basically tell me that.
So if you think the NLC is shit, at least it's running. Woo, yeah.
Yeah, so like
Forcing in the jungle. Why not?
And I also think, okay, there was a little bit of short-sightedness in terms of and the same thing happened in NA. The whole like meme team and like the dream teams and stuff like that, the novelty of them is only entertaining under the prospect that they can actually win, right? Sure. Because the novelty of watching someone be bad at League of Legends runs out really quickly because eventually you're just watching someone lose at a game of League of Legends, point, right? Okay, so the reason Los Ratones is so good, right, and so cool is because you have like the Bows and Velia and Reckless role swapped, right? And it's like, can this team of misfit guys kind of like, you know what I mean, like got each other's back? Can they go against the world and fucking get the job done, right? The like Ruddy and the team with Viger V2, Forza and all that, those would be interesting like teams if they were actually like able to win, as in if they were good, yeah. Because here's the fundamental point, right? T1 is the most T1 Gen G, with all the fans, right? I have loads of criticism of certain players inside T1, right? But I'm criticizing them against the other elite top 5 best players of all time. They're still fucking unbelievable. They're still like the arguably. When I'm saying like I think they're maybe not as good as what you're saying, what I'm saying is I think they're maybe like the 4th team or the 5th best team of all time, not team 5,822nd out of like fucking 10 million. Like you know what I mean? We're quibbling about percentage points at the top end, right? T1 fundamentally at the top end are still an unbelievably good team, and they're sick to watch. Like people hate watch them, but like even when you like hate watch them, when they pull off and stuff, you tip your hat. You're like fucking hell.
Oh, you
that
love
was
to hate watch
unbelievable.
them, yeah.
No, like even like Dom, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Dom will hate watch T1, but he'll still be like, yeah, what Korea done there was unbelievable. What owner done there was like unbelievable. Like
Yeah, I think
this
there's like a
stuff.
baseline
Yeah.
respect for good League of Legends.
Yeah, but it's still fundamentally at the end of the day. Eventually, it has to be good.
I mean, yeah, I remember Dom watching. It was actually not last the World's just gone. It was one before with the Faker Galio game 5, and he was just sat in his chair, just going, "I fucking hate how clutch Faker is." I don't think anyone in the world has ever sat there and been like, "God, I just hate how Forsen keeps getting away with it, man." Like,
I have to say,
these tanks are
on that
just too
same
good.
note, like I watched Faker like Flash W like my job out of existence, and I'm just sat there, I'm like, it's fucking Faker. What can you do? And like there was just like a level of, you know what? He's the fucking king. And like,
Would you
sometimes
rather?
sat there,
That's the would you rather next
you
week.
can't do shit about it.
Would
but
you
have to
rather
respect it.
have Faker be the thing that ultimately ends, your career, or some random super mega unqualified guy running in an NLC? Which one? Tricky.
Anyway, sometimes you just have to have that baseline level of respect.
Anyway, moving on to a league not quite at the bottom of the ocean yet, I guess. We're getting there. Don't worry, we're getting there.
The
LEC
Atlantis Championship
playoffs, and a team who are absolutely gasping for air, I think it's fair to say, Fnatic. Now, the way I'm going to do this is we'll talk about the matchups in the time of for expediency's sake, about the upcoming matchups, but obviously when breaking down these games, these teams, sorry, we're going to talk about the games they've just played. So Fnatic are playing the best possible series, in my opinion, for pure Kino, whatever happens, which is versus Vitality. Like, come on, guys, this is just the absolute dream. As I put out on my tweet before the series was even played, the dream is that Fnatic, after having kicked Humanoid for Polby, then kicks Polby for Vladdy, that they just go on the Fnatic mid laner gauntlet and just lose all the games. So we're on for it. It is Humanoid versus Vladdy for all the marbles. But yes, they obviously did play an interesting game of League of Legends against Na'Vi before that. But yeah, thoughts on Fnatic so far, Keire? First, obviously, we did do our little tier list or whatever. I think I had them 5th. I can't remember where you guys had. I think you had them 5th as well, maybe. So we had what I would assume was like, if anything, people probably thought we had them too low. Although I will give, everyone enough credit to say I don't think people were sipping the Fnatic copium too hard before the start of this year. But they're still meant to be an upper echelon team-ish. What are your sort of thoughts on them?
If I was here last week, I would have told you Navi murdered them, by the way. Now, I know that's fine for me to say in hindsight, right? But I would actually say, okay.
I think we said the same, actually.
To be fair, your substitute, Mr. Sam, did actually say that they're going to get blasted. So
Ralik is probably, like, he's the 2nd best jungler in the league. He's the clear MVP of the league, by the way, by, like, a margin that's fucking, like, outstanding, by the way. Like, even his, like, bad games are incredible. And, like, anyway, I digress, right? My friend said to me, shout out to Sean, because this is his bet, right? Fnatic are such a fucking cursed org, right, okay, that they made Worlds last year, right? And the way they made Worlds last year, they had with Oscar in, pop off, and fucking beat Kana, and then they had Vladdy internally blow up the team from the inside so that they could make Worlds. And their thoughts were, let's kick Oscar in and get Vladdy so that we definitely don't make Worlds. Only Fnatic could think like this, by the way. Only Fnatic. You cannot tell me that the Greek waiter in the top lane is better than Oscar Innan for all his flaws. I don't care what you say. Oscar Innan was at times arguably the 2nd or the best top laner in the league. They were short times, but at least I could actually say that, and you could maybe go, right, nobody's arguing, nobody's saying that about No one's saying that about Fnatic now. Vladdy, right, okay, here's the problem. I wish I could have grabbed Vladdy by the fucking ears and screamed into his face, right, like Larson, right, okay. You are not the double Fs, perks, fucking reckless, some of the wonders, some of the greatest Western players of all time. When you let your form drop off and you just like make yourself shit and you are bad and you are playing bad, it's really hard to make yourself good again. Do you think all those older guys like weren't trying their absolute arses off trying to make themselves good again? It's hard when you've like got that edge and you're ahead. It's really hard to like get it again and keep on top of it. It's why like Caps is so mercurial. So when they got Vladdy, I think I was on drugs because I should have fucking been able to see this. I was like, it wasn't actually as good an idea as you think, right? It's a good risk taking idea. I'll agree with that. But it wasn't actually good. Here's the problem. You never actually got a good player. Like, he wasn't actually playing good League of Legends when you got him. So it's like, if I was to go and say to you, right, okay, Rich, I'm going to go and get you Heretics. You know what I mean? Or, fucking, who's the guy on Astralis back in the day?
Oh, you mean Daylor?
Daylor. I'm going to go and get
right.
you Daylor
Yeah.
for mid lane. You'd be like, but Keire, are they even
Dayor,
good?
yeah.
Dayor.
Oh,
You're
yeah,
like,
yeah,
but Keire,
yeah.
are they even good? I was like, no, right? But, right, okay, they were actually really unhappy on their teams, and if we bring on to Fnatic, that'll make them happy and they'll be good. What do you think, Rich?
Yeah, no,
What do you
I
think
mean,
of that idea?
as Nemesis put in an interview or whatever last week, something along the lines of, "I'm not surprised they're unhappy. They're playing on Fnatic, so obviously they're going to be much happier when they're not on Fnatic."
Well, did you see the shit which Grabs just said in an
Well,
interview
okay,
as well? Did you see that today?
let's talk about this very briefly because I'm
Cool.
sick of Grabs. By the way, I'm fucking sick of him. I'm not even saying that what he's saying isn't true. Like, multiple things can be true at once. Basically, for people who didn't see, Grabs did an interview with Sheep Esports, if I'm not mistaken, and he basically said, "I don't have enough staff. Fnatic promised me more staff, but I've only got 2 extra coaches." It's like, fucking hell, bro. Get a grip. All I heard last year was how you needed this magician performance coach to come in and everything would be hunky-dory. That guy did join. I can confirm that guy was there, and you guys did fucking nothing. Now what? Like, by the way...
Oh, it's Esports Maniacos, by the way, not Sheep.
Oh, sorry. I think they reposted it or whatever. But by the way, I know times have like sort of moved on slightly, so feel free to hit me with the back to bed with you grandpa memes or whatever. From my
Shut up, Unk.
I still believe, I'm not saying this would be an ideal setup. I'm not saying this would be an ideal setup. I still believe you can just win LEC with one coach if he's good. I don't actually think you need more than that. I think
if you have the right chemistry between players, I think it's possible. Yeah.
Obviously, ideally, you'd want a really good coach and a guy who's just doing all the jobby work, doing all the like data gathering and all the stats and everything, saying, "Hey, I need to know this. Can you go and get it for me?" Like, just finding objective piece of information.
I think I'm gonna just sorry to interrupt. I think all those people are fake. I think all of them, they're all fake. I think they don't exist, and if they all exist, they're the most fraudulent cunts on planet Earth. Because if they didn't, then people wouldn't be building like dog shit in the games I'm watching every single week, day in, day out. So what is your job? Is your job just to speak to players and tell them to do dog shit things, right? And then get paid, which then you're the most fraudulent cunt on the planet. And then that means either the player's not listening, and then you've got no like repercussion for the players. So see all these like researchers, analysts and all that, they're all fake as fuck. I know there's like people out there buying machines that tell them who fucking good players look like and all that. Good players look like fucking good players. You know what they are because they win games of League of Legends. It ain't some fucking myth. Navi have literally shown up for 2 seconds and they're like, yeah, let's put Relic on a contract. Navi have no background on League of Legends. What? Are they sitting in the CIS with a fucking fucking Command and Conquer Red Alert computer being like, and if we input the uranium, it'll tell us that Relic is the best jungler.
They've got Dendi locked in the basement, poring over solo queue VODs. That's what they've got.
Just pondering the fucking Dota orb and like, yes, we can see, it's told in the foreshadowings, in 20 years, the player Relic will carry us. It's like, it's a nonsense. It's an absolute nonsense.
4-man sleep.
All these people are fucking fake, and if they do exist, I should be able to find them. I have never seen players being like, by the way, thanks to this data analyst, he taught me about this build, shout out him. I've never seen players, hidden shout out to this guy that taught me this like matchup and all that, and actually, or the coaches are like grabs us like, by the way, the guy that taught us this fucking jungle path, and shout out, people being like looking for a job on Twitter and everyone retweeting him. He supplied us for builds for like 20 weeks, and this guy knows what he's talking about, and he's like the top guy. They don't exist. They're all fucking myths. I don't give a fuck. And if they do exist, can some of them get into my DMs?
But this is the thing, right? And by the way, it's fun. It's pretty
Can
funny.
I just say that was a legendary rant? That is like that's some spice. That's some piping hot tea. That was legendary. What?
Anyway, I'm done.
Yeah, it's funny. I do find it funny when like people analysts or whatever who need work like put out a tweet and then one of two things happen. It gets liked and retweeted or whatever, and the people making comments literally just say stuff like, "Great guy, would be a really good asset on any team," or something. And like it's so nondescript. It's crazy. Like as you said, I've never really heard anyone being like, "Oh, you should see this guy. Like he's so good. Like we didn't know how to deal with this, but then this guy gave us a spreadsheet and showed us that actually we need to be doing it like this." And then it's like, "Holy fuck! Now the matchup's easy." Like you don't really hear these kinds of stories. But I also said, and this is why I gave the example, what you need is one good coach and a dog's body. Like, who does specifically what the good coach tells him. Not, "Oh, you're my analyst, go look up arbitrary bits of information and compile it for me." The good coach should know what bits of information he needs, and then the dog's body can go and farm that information. Like, I genuinely believe you do not need more than that, by the way. You also need a team manager who just deals with all the logistics and takes like all the bullshit off your hands, right? Like he's the guy who coordinates the shuttle buses with Riot. He's the guy that makes sure that everyone's fucking fed, whatever. Like he does all the non-League of Legends stuff, let's say, and then you've got one coach and one guy who does what the coach tells him to do. Why do you need more than that? Unironically, why do you need more than that? So I don't even know who these two coaches are that he's referencing, but give me a fucking break. I'm sorry. The reality is, if you were a good coach, you'd get it done. You'd get something done. You would do something. There would be some arc of improvement. Even if your legacy for this split or whatever was like, fucking Jax Plank had never played an LEC before, but look at the trajectory of him from week 1 to now. Like, isn't that good at least? It's like, give me something. This team looks like they're not coached. This team looks like they don't know how to draft. They look like none of them have been positionally coached. They look like none of them have been macro coached. They just look dog shit. And I don't know. I'm so sick of just hearing basically grabs coming out and saying, "Oh, but they promised me one extra coach and that would have been the difference." No, fuck off. Like, your off-season was crap. Who the fuck are these signings? Like, you got Vlad. I said, by the way, I think Vladdy should have been a punt for a team. Just not this team. Like, a team that saw Vladdy and how good he was on his playoff run in spring, for example. Let's say Giants. If I'm Giants, I'd have taken a punt on him because Jackie's, let's be real, has been pretty shit. He's been pretty shit. And I have seen more from Vladdy in the last 18 months than I've ever seen from Jackie's. And even though he's not been a great 18 months for Vladdy, it's been a much better 18 months for him than it has been for for Jackie. So a team like that, take a punt. Fnatic, what are you doing? Like, you've literally gone from Humanoid, who's like an all-timer in the context of EU, to Polby, who was a bit uninspiring for me personally, but obviously a very competent player who gave you some level of stability. So, okay, you're going to replace him. Fair enough. If you have grand ambitions, go and get an upgrade. But that's the key. Get an upgrade. What the fuck is this, man? Like, and then get his mate in top lane, as I've said, which is the equivalent of just getting a Korean buddy for your Korean mid laner. Like, spoiler alert, he's not Korean and he's not good, and you've just got his mate to play top lane. Like, what the fuck are we doing? So don't tell me about I need an extra analyst or whatever. Like, fuck off, man. I'm so sick of it. Nymaera, what are your thoughts on the Fnatic?
I'm trying to think of which
project?
threads to pull out of stuff you've mentioned already, because I mean, Fnatic just seems to be just a dumpster fire, right? Like this team is just where mental health goes to die within this region, where everyone on there just seems more stressed. It seems like they can't get things together.
Yeah.
And the thing which really, really worries me is that we had, and we talked about this last week, and we've talked about this over the course of it, but we've seen more games, and it looks like the point's still there. Communication issues seem to be one of the biggest, seem to be the biggest thing that they talk about in terms of people seeing the game the same way, communicating well, putting their ideas for the game out there. And one of the things which I think that comes into with what you were saying is about this coaching thing and how actually do you need extra people? Now, I think that they can be useless for them, but also I think what we didn't talk about there is how players also are coaches too, to a certain extent. Players input information to everyone else on the team. Everyone should be building up that chemistry, that mutual understanding of the game and building towards something bigger. Players very often are something which they bring all of the game knowledge in some teams where, I mean, for instance, G2 2019, a lot of that team in terms of the game knowledge was just brought by the players, and then actually the coach's job was to make sure that that was being used in a fruitful way and getting them onto the same page. Sometimes that's what happens. I mean, we look at teams like T1, right, where it is assumed that actually a lot of the coaching is basically faker, and then you have more people who are facilitators. You have to understand the chemistry of your team, what you're getting out of them, and what they need in terms of coaches, because not every team will be coached the same way. And I think one of the problems of Fnatic is that there was basically a single stated goal, which is get players thinking about the game, presenting their ideas in healthy, constructive ways, which add to the total kind of pool of information, which builds up that chemistry. And they've utterly failed with that. They've regressed from the start of the split. They have regressed. How? Everything about this team was meant to be a better environment to learn and grow as a team, where people are not. It's not just Razork versus Upset in terms of their views of the game, and it becoming antagonistic because no one else is actually presenting their ideas of the game. So there's no like three-prong kind of thing, and you can't find a middle ground between all of them. It's just two people becoming antagonistic. And of course before that you had that potentially with Humanoid and Razork before that too. So obviously they probably did have people with three people who are more vocal about that in the past. Whatever. I just can't believe that if that's the stated goal, what the heck's happened? And I empathize with Grabs if he believes he was communicated to that there would be more staff. And of course, he was talking about how when there was a coach who was off ill. Obviously, that doesn't help at all. But yeah, I think that Fnatic just don't have chemistry. They just don't have chemistry, and this is with you bringing in a solo laning pair, which are friends that they've played on previous teams before. That should be. And they're meant to be more communicative, I suppose, than Oscar and Poby. And yeah, at this point, Emperos has been fine, but I just don't think he's had the peaks of Oscar in. And one of the things about Oscar in was that even when the team was shit, and even if you had like 80% shit games from him, and the remaining 20% or whatever percentage you want to arbitrarily point it at, he could actually be a very high peaking top laner. I don't know who's peaking at all on Fnatic right now. Besides, I think Upset's the one guy I think is earning his pay again, actually, in terms of individual play. I think that he's sadly stuck with a guy called, Losper, who's not been performing particularly well in my mind, either in lane or outside of it. I think Razork has completely lost the trust of his team, and teams lost the trust in him, which was a big problem that we saw previously on the team. So this may well be the worst version of Fnatic we've seen in the modern era, which is ridiculous. This could actually go down to be like worst iteration of it. I suppose there was... Wait, was there the... What was the last roster that we had Reckless on for that? Was he around for a year actually last on them?
I can't remember.
No,
Yeah.
Okay, maybe I'm misremembering.
There have been a couple of bad ones.
Yeah.
Like they've missed playoffs before and so on. But like, I don't know. Like, and again, I'm not saying that what Grabs is saying isn't true. Like, I fully believe that he was probably promised something and that he didn't get it. I think it's highly unlikely that he would go public and say something like that if it wasn't true. But and as I put on Twitter, like, just to be clear, this isn't like just about Fnatic or something like this. Esports orgs are just
23 winter, by the way. That was
23 winter. Esports orgs, for the most part, still have a huge amount of people in them that were there from the beginning. Like we talked a bit earlier about sort of nepotism and cronyism or whatever. There's also this idea of like baked in history that people just have by virtue of being around and existing for a long time in the space. And LEC orgs are still filled with these kinds of people. And some of them are not particularly great at their jobs and are lazy as fuck. And again, I don't know the specifics or the ins and outs of Fnatic specifically, but the reason I'm mentioning this is, again, referencing what I wrote in response to like Sam Matthews on Twitter earlier. It's like, do not believe Like, these orgs have not earned the right for you to just default believe them when they say, I know that everyone's working super hard and we're all doing our best, but it's really unfortunate. Don't believe any of that. It could be true, but there's zero reason, and they have given you zero reason to believe that. So don't just eat and gobble that all up and be like, I don't understand what's going wrong. Like, they say they're working really hard. Odds are they're probably not. There's probably a bunch of people in that org that probably aren't working particularly hard. I'm not gonna.
Okay, hang on. The way I would put this is, I think these people believe that they're working hard, and I'm sure they're putting in hours. I'm not sure they're doing it efficiently is the problem, and I'm not sure they're pulling in the same direction. So I actually think they're just being counterproductive potentially.
I mean, obviously that can be true. What I'm saying could be true or could be not true. And as I said, I'm not saying Grabs is not working hard. For all I know, Grabs is either a good coach who's not effective on this team, a bad coach who's just bad, a lazy coach who's not even trying to do his job, or an incredibly hardworking guy who's out of his... He can be any of these things. And I'm not going to go through names and be like, maybe this person's this and this and this. All I'm saying is, like, none of these... Like, Fnatic has not earned the right for you to assume the statements that they're giving you are true. Like, do not just believe that these people are working hard and that there must be something going on, because I promise you, a lot of people who are still working in high-profile esports orgs are fucking lazy, by the way. Like, just actually lazy. So, you know, it is what it is. Anyway, what we can see is what they do on the Rift. That is something we can objectively look at. And their friends on the other side of the Rift that they'll be playing this coming weekend is obviously Vitality, everyone's favorite team, certainly a favorite of the show. And now I know they ended up obviously losing to MKOI, but I do want to talk a little bit about the Chronobreak, because obviously this has sparked quite a lot of controversy. I do think it's fair to say, though not obviously the be all and end all, that I think the series probably goes differently if that doesn't happen. I'm not saying they win, by the way. I'm just saying, like, obviously a lot of this is like butterfly effect or whatever, but I think when a chrono break like that goes against you, it can give you such like a mental slap in the face that it can sort of derail what then succeeds it. So yeah, Nymaera, like, what were your... First of all, did you agree with that? Could you see exactly the reason why there was a break? Like, some people are even arguing about, well, there's nothing there that even justifies the break, or to the point to which they broke it back to, or whatever. Like, did you fully understand what was happening on the broadcast and why? And how do you think it affected things?
So I didn't watch that bit live. But from my understanding, effectively there was a bug with Talia wall.
Yeah, he jumped off early.
Which he ended up, basically, like, I'm trying to find the exact clip now again, actually. But basically, effectively what happened was Vitality went for quite a ballsy play, actually, and brought Corki out of Fog of War and Narco as well. So they brought, like, multiple carries down to the play. And it kind of, and they tried to make the play. So basically Talia ended up jumping off the wall early instead of, like, jumping directly into Corki to try and get the full combo. After Mirwin had already died, and then 3 of them die because of that, and then there's the pause, which is then Chronobreak 4. Then the problem is this: even if Talia had jumped off, Zahen is already dead, and you're still likely losing another person, because the combo you put onto one person, you're still probably dying to the 2 remaining people at the play. Because again, you have like 3 carries there from Vitality, because they're playing the J-Stop as well, who is very strong at that point. So there are a lot of different problems here, and one of the biggest ones, which I think is brought up correctly, is that when they chronobreaked it, I believe they chronobreaked it back to when just before the play had happened. So I don't think we actually saw it in live, but effectively the Talia ult works out. But the problem is, when the play was made in the first place, when MKOI made the play, they didn't have information of where Corki was.
Yeah.
And when the play happened again, they gained an advantage by having information that they should not have had access to in the game. And that's a problem, because I actually think that gave them more of an advantage than they were owed. And I think that realistically, the Talia ult bug changed less about the play than actually because typically what happens is when you have a chrono break, you go back to what's called a dead ball state, where basically, as within reason, nothing important is happening. So you go back when there's no champions hitting each other, or like, you know, some important happenings on the map. You go back to as close as possible to the game state where no important decision is being made at that point, or no important action is happening. The problem is here, I think, well, I mean, realistically, where do you put it back to? Do you just at that point take the play back to after Mirwin kind of like, because Mirwin also just doesn't cast his ult either, and he just kind of fucks up individually. I don't know. I feel like this feels very unfair to Vitality from that point, where I understand a bug has happened and there is a rule book in place for this. I don't think they rewinded it to the right point, personally.
So here's okay. This has happened twice. It's happened twice for Mad Lions, and it's had massive implications both times. Cats makes a game-winning play. They revert. Then a bug happens after the game-winning play that has nothing to do with the Cassio. They revert the game to the point where the Cassio ult hasn't happened. G2 lower bracket versus Mad Lion BO5.
Oh yeah, is this
right?
the one where is that the flash flip one where it looks like he's turning backwards or something like that?
No. He flashes the wall, ults 4 people in the Dragon Pit. They kill everyone, and then G2 shoot an Archan projectile, and it bugs, and then because Heli can't see that projectile, he then resets the entire play, and then Captain can't redo the ult. That's why I always say that Mad Lions' LEC running Springs, one of the most fraudulent things ever. The ref literally just reset the game for them. They literally lost. Now, a game happened after that, but if you're G2, that was one time I would say if I was a player, I wouldn't have walked back out on stage and played. I genuinely would have just striked the game. I would have just I would have taken all the repercussions because I was like, that was actual live bullshit. This is a little bit different, but it is still a little bit bullshit. Now, obviously, the play consideration. The reason it goes so badly for Vitality is Karze doesn't adjust to the new situation. Karze knows now that Merwin knows where he is, right? And Karze just chooses to play out the situation and die the exact same, right? Now, this comes to a new point. What do you think is actually fair? Where the ref puts the game. The ref puts the game in like a dead state where Merwin gains a massive advantage. He now knows that Vitality have set up the map to gank him. So he now can see into Fog of War, right? That he previously couldn't, right? So, and then Karze then, knowing that Merwin knows that, then chooses to then make a less effectual play, and then Merwin gets his ult off and he dies, and like Karze dies, right? Is it more fair or less fair to not just lock the players into a bit where they're committed to the play that they were going to have to do before the bug happened? So, for example, right, you like play it to the point where the Talia TP is having to happen and Merwin has to face check.
Yeah, because I think they effectively end up taking it to 28-30-ish. And realistically, maybe you should put it back to 28 dead before Corky's even made the roam. Maybe.
But no, they should. Okay, and this is the point, Rich. I agree with Nymaera. To actually get a dev state, and this is where you need a referee who needs to know about League of Legends, you have to roll it all the way back to a point where Vitality haven't made a decision of when they're going to make their play on the map. Now it just gets fucking crazy because, like, do you know what I mean with that?
I'm completely the other way, by the way. I think you literally, if it's impossible, you take it back to where the guy's already on the fucking wall, and it's like, by the way, in like 10 frames time, that's where the bug happened.
Okay, I'm happy with that being the concession. Okay, the problem being is now let me give you a new one. Let me give you the next example. If this was like a precedent for court, like law or like a rulebook. Okay. A big massive team fight's going on, right? World's final, right, Rich, okay? World's final, Knight gets flashed on by Galio, okay? The taunt doesn't work, right? So Faker flashes onto Knight, and the taunt doesn't work. Knight asks for like a remake of the game, or even though the Zinjao and that doesn't kill him, they ask for a remake, or Faker asks for a remake of the game, right? So now Knight's seen that play, and he now knows that mistake's about to happen, right? Okay? How do you like... Do you know what I mean? Do you go to the point where just when it's like when he's on top of him and he's already committed to flash? Like, do you begin to see the problem with the main case of like at what point is it advantageous for one player or another player? And then the other thing is team fights. Where about in the team fight? Because I think about it, like if you're in a channeling ability, like do you have to like literally sit there, be ready, or you're in them on your
because the point, because I'm just watching, I've got it on the second screen here. The point where they actually reset it, because you can tell from the replay, is while the Corki is already hitting the Zahen. Like they actually reset it to a point where combat is still happening anyway, because they end up, there's basically a point where Mewin dashes towards towards the bush, Kazi hits him with a Q, and then basically I think after that point, that's where they reset it from. In the first time through, Mewin doesn't cast his ult, gets blasted by Kazi, who just completely one-shots him. And in the second one, Kazi just doesn't flash the Taliyah knockup. And, the Zahen ults away, Kazi then doesn't flash the Taliyah knockup. Realistically, it feels like it is way more important that the Zahen fucked up rather than the Taliyah bug ended up happening. So actually, by the Taliyah bug happening, you end up nullifying what was player error rather than game error, which is the problem there. And that happened technically just before the Taliyah roll came into the play as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately Chronobreak is kind of... this isn't even me being like critical of it or something, because it's a thing which can be used in uncontroversial ways, but I think it's inherently flawed in the sense that, yeah, you're never going to be able to recreate a fair outcome. Like, what should actually be fair is that both teams watch the playback, like, hooked up to polygraph machines, and like, realistically, if this bug doesn't happen, who do you think dies? And then there's like, well, yeah, that guy's dead, and yeah, this guy probably lives because he's the one that... It's like, okay, well, we're just going to send you cunts back to Fountain then and give them the gold for it, and this guy's still alive and walks off or whatever. Like, if you could actually just recreate the situation where you just play it back 5 seconds or whatever before the unpause, and you just say, like, let this guy kill you, this guy, you let this guy walk away because he would have got away otherwise. Like, that sounds ridiculous, and obviously it's so hap-handed that it would never work like that, but that would actually achieve the fairest result. As I said, in reality, it would never work. People would argue. You'd get really cocky players who'd be like, well, actually, I would have done a backflip and then flashed and then done this. So, whatever, in actuality, it would never work. But Chronobreak is so fucking flawed as well. It's like, okay, so if he doesn't bug off the wall, do 2 players die instead of 3? Probably, but they get to put it back all the way to where Kazi fucking dies, and it's like, what are we doing?
Yeah, but Kazi kills himself.
I know he does, but he should never be given the opportunity to kill himself, though. That's the thing.
Right. Okay, but fundamentally, okay, that's where I get not so far frustrated. It is unfair. I agree, right? But given the unfair situation, right? And it's tilting. Fundamentally, Kazi still has decision making that he can make, right? The same way Merwin has decision making that he can make, right? Kazi does not. He can opt to not do that play. Like Vitality can opt not to do that play with the concession in. You see the Taliyah TP, you walk away from it. Yes, it's not as good. You have been screwed over a little bit. You know what I mean? How things have happened, okay? But what he chooses to do, and remember, his character, he chose to do this, is the absolute worst possible thing. And that's where my sympathy runs slightly dry. And in terms of I could show you a team fight, right, Rich, right, where I fucking played it really, really, really well, right, okay? And then I tell you, they chrono breaked it, right, okay, before the team fight. And then in this time, right, no one else does anything differently, and I just flash into the middle of the team and I just die, right, okay? And I'm like, see, well, that's bullshit. And it's like, yeah, you you might have not played it as well as you did before, but you literally found the worst possible way to play it. I was like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
they're a little bit, they're different extremes. Here's what I think. Do you think they should just remove Chronobreak from the rule set and just all bugs happen?
No, because there's a bug. Like, as you said, there's a bug that could just theoretically lose you a world championship, and then it's just asterisks for the end of time. And as cancer as it is, if there was a game-losing bug and you had to just replay the whole game, there would be a small asterisk next to that as well, or maybe even a biggish asterisk, but it wouldn't be as bad as literally losing because the game just broke on you of no fault of your own. It's just completely taken out of the player's hands. I think that's the best way I would put it. It's like, I really don't think there are good solutions around Chronobreak for a lot of these situations. But as you kind of said without saying, it's probably better if you put the fate of the game in the player's hands, even if it's still unfair, rather than completely removing it from the player's hands, i.e. a game-breaking bug happens, it loses you a world championship, and there's just nothing anyone could have done about it. It's like, what? It's the same as a referee trips over the power cable on your PC and just turns off your PC. And they're like, oh, that lost them worlds. It's like, Did they lose Worlds though? Like, no one's counts that as a real World Championship at that point. So yeah, it's very, very unsatisfactory how a lot of these situations pan out. I don't think it's fair, but maybe you're not always going to achieve fairness, and it's the best you can do realistically. By the way, I do think did I? Oh no, I put it on Discord. I actually think this is the game, like officially almost, where Kazi is just no longer like a top 80 carry. Like, I think it's been creeping up anyway. Like, I don't think he's been wonderful, but he's probably a player where, if anything, I'm not saying we have, but if anything, I think we've been too generous and be like, oh, what's he meant to do? He's got Hillisang. Oh, what's he meant to do? And it's like,
what do you mean? I've not been generous to him at all.
okay, well, I have.
Right.
I'll just speak for myself. Like, I think I've given this guy way too much historical credit, not just for his championships on Mad Lions in the past, but also given him a lot of excuses, some justified, I think, for the support players he's been playing with and so on. He ran it this series. He fucking ran it. Not just like the chrono break.
To get knocked off.
Mate, the one by the bush in front of the fucking tier 3s was horrendous. The worst thing about that was he's there, like, just playing so far up, so cockily, but they actually could kill him and they don't. But then he stays. And they still don't. And then he stays again and steps even further forward. And they're like, okay, well, let's just kill this fucking idiot. Like, that was so criminal. Like, that's probably the worst player of the year, by the way, so far in LEC. That was just...
No.
Mate,
no.
I think...
It's bad in the context. It's not the worst.
I think it's up there. Like, that, a gold player wouldn't die like that, by the way.
Mate, Fleshy played in the same server as him, mate, and I've seen some things. When he self-ults as Zaheen and gets humanoid killed, that's pretty bad.
Yeah, but that's...
okay,
but in my opinion, there's a difference between, like, completely fucking up a well-intentioned play and just being a moron. Like, I couldn't even... What's Kazi do? Oh, I'll get one extra Q and an auto attack off on this guy who doesn't need to heal. Like, what? It's just so stupid.
I'm more jesting than anything else.
But yeah,
it's a good play from Elyoya, building up the knock-up on the ward.
Yeah, but that's also, like, the most common Shinzao, like, random knock-up thing. Did you see the one in LPL where they had Shinzao Rise, where they found a ward in enemy jungle, channeled Realm Warp, charged the Q, and then Shinzao came out with the Q fully charged coming out of a Realm Warp? That was actually so sick. And that one you can't prep for, but this one, like, he's literally hitting a fucking wall with a Q. Like, that's fucked up. You mean if you just stand there like, wow, that's a strange color. His spear's looking at that. Oh god, he's got a Q. What am I gonna do? That, like, guys, we've played against Shinzao now for the better part. I mean, in terms of the latest iteration, since 2022, we've been playing against this fucking champion for like 4 years almost. You have to know what happens when that Q gets charged. That one to me felt lazy, honestly. That one felt really bad to watch.
But yeah, my main point, I guess, is we've always talked about Vitality as being like, well, at least they've got like a good AD carry, and they've got enough carry power on their team. It's just, will support let you down? Is Linsus good enough? Whatever. But AD carry is actually a weak point at this moment. I think Kazi is just not good right now. Unfortunately, certainly not reliable.
Not reliable. I'll agree with, but I think this guy has. He
has ability, of course. Really, like, I'm not disputing that he has ability, but he is. You know what he's reminding me of? This split a little bit is Exakick. In the split where he
he has like 1 or 2 really peak champions, but besides that, just looks dull.
Yeah, and he's just face checking like constantly into like he's just not face checking. He's just face tanking like frontlining fights as AD carry and just dying like just randomly like off cooldown. It's not as extreme, obviously, but that is what it reminded me of. But yeah, in terms of this matchup specifically, obviously both deeply flawed in their own ways, although I think we've seen higher highs from Vitality, I would say at least. Nymaera, what are your thoughts on this matchup in general?
I still think Fnatic get like Giga Stomped. I mean, I know that preseason I was like, well, Vitality don't deliver on promises. They're the razor cake. Fnatic are somehow worse than my expectations, because I remember in pre-split, I think I put Fnatic a rung above Vitality, but that's just because I'm like, I just don't trust Vitality to get it together. Credit to Vitality, I think they've actually had way more cohesion than they thought they would. I thought they would do at this point at the splits. I also think that, look, their drafting has been ambitious, and that is a diplomatic word. Sometimes it's just been not good, but I think that at least they've been trying some different stuff, and I will credit them for that. Fnatic, it's just very hard to pull out good things from their last couple of performances. Like I was saying, it feels like Razork feels like he's lost the trust of his team and they've lost trust in him. Upset still puts out good damage occasionally, but he has no platform to do that on right now. Vladdy just doesn't look like he understands matchups and doesn't know where it's safe for him to stand. He has no synergy with Razork. I think that Emperos has been decent on Jax, which is, one of the champions he used to go by, right? And Jax Plank. But I don't think he's been nearly enough to actually carry this team because, if you had some peak LEC top laners, if you give them a really good run at things, they can just carry a game from the abyss for you. He's just not that guy, even when he's on one of his choice champions. So I don't know who is going to rescue that team. I don't also think this is a team that can dig deep, trust in each other, and pull out a ridiculous performance. So all they're hoping for is just a magnificent Vitality collapse. And I don't think we'll see it to the degree which needs to happen for Vitality to lose. I think they're just better in lanes across the board. I think that Linsus and even though Flashy has not been great, I think that Linsus and Flashy have moved together better. And I think that Vitality it's something just horrific would have to happen to this team for them to lose this series.
What do you think, Keire? I mean, I don't think I'm as high on Vitality even as Nymaera is. I don't think Vitality are some world beaters. I think they're very flawed as well. But what are your thoughts?
No, I'm just really low on Fnatic. Don't mistake me. Fnatic are the worst team in playoffs.
Yeah, what do you think, Keire? Who do you favour?
Vitality, but it's like two razor cakes. And because I've said Vitality, the world's gonna crush Master Precisions, and Vladdy's gonna crush Humanoid, and and Nat Nako's gonna just lose. Bro, I just can't picture Nat Nako losing to.
No.
Mate, Nat Nako was incredible, by the way. He's a fried guy. He's good. By the way, like the one concern I've got, mate, Linkus' fucking eye for engage is. Seen that second game, mate? That was like 5.
Oh, the Jarvan game was really, really bad. Yeah.
Oh, mate, like this guy is so flippy, and I was like, why?
Okay, this isn't an excuse at all, but I think Vitality's mental was cooked, by the way. I think they were absolutely cooked. I think that is the worst possible way to lose a game. You are giga monster stomping, then you get Chronobreaked. The immediate aftermath of the Chronobreak is you kind of like semi-mini throwing, and then at that point onwards, you're just like, I don't know. And they are not a team that strike me as having lots of mentally strong players in important positions. So yeah,
no, definitely not.
So yeah, no, I agree. I think Vitality are favoured. I'd be a bit surprised if Fnatic won, but I do think Vitality is sufficiently flawed that stranger things have certainly happened. Now, something that I don't think anyone is particularly surprised about is obviously we're going to be seeing G2 versus KC. I think obviously G2 overall, the split so far have been pretty shit, but they were pretty good in this series, which I don't think was particularly surprising either. I do think most people expected them to step up at least a chunk going into playoffs. And I think it is probably fair to say that these are the two best teams in playoffs at the moment. I think obviously a lot of that is the assumption that G2, not that they were sandbagging or something, but were just getting through the regular season and did actually look pretty good in their first playoff match. And KC have looked like the best team all split, I think would be fair to say. So yeah, Nymaera, what do you think about, well, G2's glow up, first of all? What did you think of their Heretics performance?
It's actually quite hard to judge this because I think that Stend and Ice just had such a nightmare. It gave G2, and I also just think that mid lane laning phase was just so poor from Seren on the part that it's actually very hard to judge this because G2 had such an easy intro into the game. It's so hard to judge them. They weren't pushed in important areas of the game. I think that Stend.
Are we calling beaten? I thought I would go.
I think that Stend had one really good game versus KC. He locked in for that. And then it made us think, back to last year when actually ended off the year pretty good. Stender's had a shit split, guys. He's had a really shit split. And while I actually think that Labrov and Skewmond had a really good series on the whole versus, well, the second game was a little more even, but even then there were some caveats to that. I think that G2 had such an easy entrance into the game with Caps just butchering Seren in the 1v1 and Labrov and Skewmond getting off the ground so early that it just felt like it was just an impossible game to play. I think that G2, when Caps is doing really well, they look like a well-oiled machine. But I don't think we learned that much about them because Caps was just stomping, really. I think what was really telling was it game 2 that Heretics were playing the Pantheon, or was that game 1? Because one of my big takeaways was when Keire was on the Pantheon was Heretic. I think it was game 2 actually, because there was the Trundle, right? Yeah, that was game 2. But my take was effectively Heretics needed a global to match the timing of Skewmon going towards the sidelines, which is really, really problematic because champions with globals, if they have to use the global to like even up their macro versus a team which doesn't have a global, you're losing out somewhere else. And in that case, it came around to the big 5v5s, right? Where Keire was ulting onto Cap's lane when he's on the Orianna and just hoping that he'd catch him out, but actually Skewmon was there on really good timing. I think G2 were really good around playing around Caps when he was very far ahead of the game, and I think that Skewmon was in the right place at the right time very, very often, and that was in both games for him. So G2, they looked really good when they're ahead, when Plan A went well, but I just, in good conscience, can't draw any great conclusions for them because I think that Heretics just didn't turn up to play in laning phase, and I think particularly in support, I think Sten had a bit of a nightmare.
Yeah. What do you think, Keire? Are you impressed with G2's glow up?
When you left esports, you shouldn't have went into podcasting. You should have went into political spin. Because calling G2 beating fucking Heretics a glow up, by the way. Shame on the House of Ptolemy. Shame, what do you call it? That is some fucking work. There's a lot. Words are doing some heavy lifting in there. Bro, fucking. This is how G2 should be treating a Heretics BO3. Next. Right, okay, that's how you should a mere like breeze on it. Heretics are so concerning, by the way. The second game, you've got a Gnar inside lane. Winning the matchup. Up 1.5k. You're against BB, so of course you are, right? And I'm jesting. It's like a winning matchup, but I'm just flaming for the sake of flaming. You gotta keep going with the bet. And it continues to go on like that. Oh, let's not play that side lane and secure our man advantage or health advantages before we go into the objectives. Let's 5v5 with no rage bar and not clear vision. Yeah, let's do that. Teams historically have done really good at upsetting G2 by just 5v5ing them. That's how it's been done. Yeah. Said no team ever. Good job, Heretic. Thank you for your contribution to the 2 games that I had to watch of you that will never be remembered. Caps laned well, bot lane massive deft. I didn't like the Skewmon Trundle pick as much without an enchanter, but I liked his band.
Oh, I just thought it was just a wave. I just thought it was an instant Wukong slam personally, and then they didn't lock it. So I was a little bit sus on that, but he played it well enough to justify.
He did play it well enough, and then he also built the bando pipes. So maybe G2 have got a builds analyst guy that folk are listening to. So but yeah, like just like mate, it's a bit of a nothing burger. You know what I mean? Like
it is, but okay. Here's the thing. I'm more looking at it from the lens of if no games have been played, right, in playoffs, and we were being told KC's playing G2, we'd already all probably be sat here thinking, as things stand, that looks like a fairly potentially one-sided series. Obviously, with the caveat that G2 can come alive. So my real question is like, do you feel now? I know it's Heretics or whatever, but actually G2 might be a proper League of Legends team going into that series, and it will actually be competitive. Okay,
but
no. Okay.
I literally watching this series literally never changed any of my questions because Heretics didn't do anything that like actually constitutes attempts to like actually win real games of League of Legends against like a team that actually knows what they're doing.
You still have to do. You still have to do it though. You still have to beat down what's in front of you though, Keire.
Yeah. You have to beat down what's in front of you. But there's teams who are worse than G2, but they stomp teams that are worse than them. But the way they stomp them is less ethical and it's actually worse League of Legends.
Ethical.
Yeah, right. Like as in like you can actually play
We
like
let him go for like 1 week and he comes back like this. Holy shit.
you can play what looks like a worse game of like League of Legends. You maybe don't end the game as quickly, right? You like the IG like 20-minute like plow, right? But
Oh,
your
that's
decision,
Esoteric one, yeah.
yeah, but your decision making was actually better than the team that blew up the Nexus up at 20 minutes because like all your analysis of the risk at each stage point and each frame point is like better and they could like break it down. So like it's ethereal. Like G2 never showed me anything that I didn't know about them already. And going into the matchup, I learned more from KC than I did from G2, which informs the matchup. But I didn't learn much about G2.
What do you think, Nymaera? What about, I mean, about both
Um,
teams? Do you feel any differently about KC or G2 going into this one?
KC reconfirmed to me that they're the best slow roll team within the LEC.
Yeah.
If the game comes down to kind of like slow pushing lanes, controlling the area around an objective, and not about big flashy engages, KC are the best team within the LEC. I think they struggle when too much of the engage responsibility falls down to Yike. I just don't think that the team, or I don't know exactly who it falls down onto, but it's where the meme about where Yike Vi comes down to, where they don't really know how to push leads through Yike on engage. I get that in that game when he was on the Vi, it was a sole engage comp. You think, well, maybe it's a bit hard to do this. Some teams across the world still thrive with that, and they can just full send it out of Fog of War onto a single target, and like the cadence of the plays is enough that they can still push forwards in the game. I was quite worried in that game that KC got leads in 1v1s and 2v2s, but couldn't really convert it up until GX just randomly started Baron in front of them and fucking just lost the flip. That was just so insane to me, by the way. I think, again, in that series, I learned more about GX than I did about KC, rather than just... the only thing which I saw was kind of reconfirming that KC may have some engage issues when it comes down to Yike being on that soul engage. I think that who continues to be very, very solid. I think he's been a cut above my expectations for him. I didn't know how well he would integrate, but actually maybe I should have trusted them more with that because they integrated Canna very well, very quickly actually. So perhaps that was just a misread on my part. I think that Busio has been stellar. The guy's been really, really good. Just the micro mechanics, the way that he moves across the map has been very, very important to them. So I think KC, I mean, pound for pound, better than G2 right now. And I think that G2, if they don't get Caps to a huge lead, and as I said, I think who's actually been really solid. I don't know what they do when that plan goes wrong. I think that particularly BB is going to get shredded in lane versus Canna. We saw that in the best of one that we saw between them regular season. I don't think Canna has anything to worry about from BB right now. I don't think that BB has the laning matchups nailed. And as it stands, I don't think G2 are the better team fighting team. So what are you hoping for from G2 over KC? Because at this point, I think you're looking for kind of like outside angles and prep advantages which G2 can have. Well, I don't think that G2's drafts have been fantastic. I think they're a little better today, but I don't think that they've changed the paradigm or anything for them. So then at that point, you're hoping for Scheme on Labrov to take over a game from ahead somehow. They need to get onto the board early, but I think that Busio and Yike have been really, really good on the whole. So I think that G2 still come in about the same benchmark, maybe slightly better, because I think it looks a little more confident today, but I don't think much has changed for my expectations of the matchup.
Yeah, I mean, I would have KC favoured, of course, in this matchup, but if I had to guess now, I do think that regardless of which team gets sent to the lower bracket, I think these two teams are probably going to be in the final. I actually don't think we've seen much from the other teams particularly. I think Na'Vi have probably been the best of the rest, let's say, but I'm not sure that I trust them enough 1 through 5 to think that in a best of 5, because obviously
I think MKOI might be able to do it if they turn up. I feel like they're still kind of sleeping a little bit, so I can see them glowing up.
I think Navi could beat G2 on a bad day.
Yeah, I mean, sure.
Not as in like not like the craziest like one, but like a little bit going wrong for G2 on the day. Like Caps has like an off day. I could see like Navi, because one of the problems is I think right now Navi give Rallic a better carry platform in jungle for the 1v1, in the head-to-head matchup than G2 give to Skewmond, and it's
Well,
completely
does
incidental.
anyone in the league give their jungler more of a platform than Navi does to Real?
Yeah,
I don't think.
Navi, it would call Yike gets a when he's
Oh
on
well,
the
he has okay because they have okay. No, I think he has uber winning lanes. I don't think they actually intentionally give him more. I think the team is so much better. Just as the Real just has worse lanes.
But no, I mean, this will be very
Well.
interesting then, because I want to move on to Navi versus MKOI, which I think is the most interesting matchup personally of these upcoming games. And I don't particularly obviously with a team like MKOI, you can always reserve the right to be like, hopefully they revert to somewhat the norm, which is a good European League of Legends team. I think they've basically been pretty shit.
Oh yeah,
Like
they've
the
regressed
whole
massively.
split, and the Vitality series did not change anything for me, because as I said, I don't want to call it a fraudulent win, but to me it is a semi-fraudulent win. It's like the Chronobreak thing happened, and it's like, okay, and then all bets, it's only a best of 3 as well, so like I think they just snowballed mental edge after that. Like I don't even consider that like a real series of League of Legends. I think that Vitality played better until the Chronobreak, and then what happened. So to me, MKOI have still shown absolutely nothing, by the way. And yeah, as you say, it's hoping certain things come online. Hopefully Jojo gets back to his best form. Hopefully Alvaro can become consistently good. El Yo-Yo, I guess, has been the sort of shining light or whatever, but he didn't have like a wonderful series against Vitality, I didn't think. So yeah, for me, this is a really interesting series, because obviously before the start of the split, if we knew this was a playoff matchup, we'd all have heavily backed MKOI. Now I think it looks really even. Obviously, Na'Vi are probably the more informed team, but as you did mention, even if I don't put quite as much stock in it, MKOI are still somewhat of a sleeping giant. Their best, you would hope, is yet to come. So yeah, Nymaera, where are you leaning on this one? I think, as I said, I think this is probably the most interesting and probably the closest on paper, or in my head canon at least, of these.
I prefer Navi in draft. I prefer Navi. Yeah, I prefer on their like take on the game right now. This one probably comes down a lot to laning strength. I think that Navi, their weakest point is just their raw laning strength. I think that, occasionally somebody in Paris can drop the ball there. I think occasionally I think semi-regularly Mainta can drop the ball there. And I think that Jojo is still a very good laning mid laner when he's on a good game. That's actually been a lot more inconsistent this split so far. But if we have, MKOI kind of shrug off the rust a little bit more, and we're still giving them that bit of overhang, right? Because you have a solid, year of knowing what their level can be. It's the same roster. I think that there's a lot of individual performances still plaguing this team somewhat. If Jojo comes up to lane really well and shuts down Poby, and Yoya is playing for individual jungle matchup, I think that maybe Na'Vi could be defanged a bit here. I think that MKOI are one of the teams which are better situated to deal with Na'Vi's big strength, which is just getting Rillick ahead in a kind of snowball matchup, which you can actually transfer into big fights. However, I do prefer Na'Vi's drafts. I do. And I do think that MKOI make enough mistakes in their carries that it's not going to be clean open and shut. I also don't think that, I don't think Mewin's been on fantastic form. So I think that Mainta maybe won't get dominated in a way that...
Is Merwin the guy... Here's the problem that I think that Navi kind of looked out on. Outside Kana, who's going to dominate Minter? Because that is where...
Well, it's not Narco, basically.
yeah, but like, that is where Navi sin. You know what I mean? They sin through Mainter, as in like they kind of do a little bit of bullshit, like a little bit. That's not really that real. It's not that Mainter's a bad player. If they can't punish you, you know what I mean. It's a bit like if they can't punish you, then it's their fault. But you know what I mean. It's a little bit like a little bit of nonsense. And you know what I mean. It's like a crooked crutch. But I don't think I don't think they're the ones for it. And I think on theme, Navi is going to get a lot. But mate, Super's had some fucking big games. These variants. Oh, here's the thing. I actually think Super's Elyoya and Super have been the two best players, right? Elyoya just in terms of consistency, but then Super's like high highs, right? Okay. Now he's had some low lows as well, but he can like spike enough to like be a nightmare. You know what I mean? A Caitlyn game followed by like a Yenara game, where he's like just well versed and he's just in his comfort zone. He's a hard guy to beat on those picks. It ain't easy. So I think the only thing, the consideration I would give onto this is the Mad Lions that we've seen that had a real depth of strategy, were super coordinated on like skirmishes on the map, were really good at selecting numbers advantages, had dicey team fighting, always did. That team's a little bit dead right now, and you know what I mean. Navi's strengths kind of like lie where Mad Lions is like withdrawn. You know what I mean? Like, if you told me there was going to be loads of 3-man skirmishes around the map, around their jungler, I think I would actually favour Navi right now. Which is fucking mental to say.
Yeah, because that's one of MKOI's historical strengths.
Historical strengths, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. But it's not been a strength recently.
Yeah, this is a fun matchup. I didn't think this would be nearly as fun pre-split and even mid-split. I was like, oh god, MKOI looking really off form. Can I just say though, if Navi actually do win this series, like again, we need to start really upping our expectations for this team again. Like Navi are continually impressing us, and I actually think it's really important for us as people doing content around the scene to just continually kind of have an eye on where the needle sits with Navi as a team which is replacing Rogue, a team which really bought into this Roulette guy really early before they could even play him on the Rift, and they've done a really good job scouting ahead for him, far beyond what I expected for him too.
By the way,
and they're
just
massively
very quickly, that is actually kind of bonkers. Just that in itself, like how rare and weird is it to have a situation where you have a guy who has no household name at all, basically, is for most people is a complete random, let's just say. That's no disrespect to him, I'm just saying in terms of his outward reputation is basically unknown. You sign him over a split ahead of time to the point where the guy who you're playing in LEC, Thygar or whatever, who by the way played all right in LEC, he wasn't that bad, he was all right, but you're just so steadfast in your idea that this is the guy, and we're so convinced that he's the guy that we're going to let like splits of League of Legends play out and still be committed to him come the next year. That is a very odd thing to do, especially because obviously things like meta and so on are so fluid that you're making assumptions about him also being like meta resistant and so on. It's like, oh, we don't really care what the meta is. Like, we want this guy. And that is a thing that matters. Like, obviously, if you see preseason patches or whatever, and they're clearly heavily leaning in one direction, or it's going to be... I mean, we talked about it in the preseason episode about how it's going to affect the lanes and so on and stuff like this. The fact that you just don't care about that, and you're like, no, we're so sure that we want this random unknown guy to be our jungler, like, this time next year, that is kind of crazy. So you kind of have to give a huge amount of respect just for that pick alone, because that's, like, so random.
But didn't they go and get like, and I might be completely fucking like
it's Tiger for last year, right?
Tiger,
yeah, but didn't they go and get the KC Blue head coach, the Rock?
Yeah, the Vizsla the Rock, yeah.
Okay, and he's worked with Maynard before.
Yes.
It would have to have, yeah, because on KCB, yeah. So like, here's the thing, Rich. Okay, it is crazy. I'm gonna put this out here. They could have just got lucky.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
That happened.
Yeah,
of course.
By the way, that's
so
not to say.
hard
That's
to know
not
in
to say.
esports.
Yeah, that's That's...
Yeah, what's interesting to me is actually I think there are multiple people I think they took a chance on, and all of them are looking a little better than I thought would do. Because remember, like all of us collectively were saying, look, Navi, realistically, they're not going to impress. So let's have a think about who has overperformed our expectations on Navi as a whole on the roster. Mainzer above or below? I was actually say it's a little bit above what I expected. I thought it was going to be like.
I'd say, to be honest, I think even. I think what I expected.
Sure.
To be honest.
For even, okay, Relic massively above. I think massively above. Poby, I actually think slightly above based on last year. Maybe a bit above that. Sam D, I think massively above. I think it's been much above. And I think even Paris, a bit above what I expected from last year too.
Even my actual individual level stuff isn't that high. My thing is how they play as a team. This looks
for
like,
sure,
okay,
completely agree.
The thing that to me is like, this is a team where every player knows that this is a Relic team. Everyone knows, right? Who like I would love. This is the bit I would love to have like a serious conversation with these players, like sit them down and go like, does your coach actually tell you that like we are going to be basing this team around like the jungle because the jungle is our best player, or does that just happen naturally because that's how you've won scrims? Like, I would want to know, was it an actual pre-designed thing, or was it a natural process that you got to because of that's the way you won? Because both of those things I could believe, right? But like, I would love, because maybe they would go to me, they'd be like, what do you mean we play around Rallic? We are a bot lane team. Handsam D is our carry player. And I'd be like, what? I would love to pick their brains, because to me, as a layman, looking outside, I look in, that entire team is like, right, we know Rallic is by far the best player. We are going to basically give him, if we're going to lose lanes, we are going to lose lanes gracefully, right? In such a way as to preserve health so that we can move to whatever Rallic wants to do, right? And we are going to resource every single minute of the game based around our jungler. By the way, Fnatic can't even do this. Fnatic can't even coordinate their fucking health bars for a scuttle. Navi do it like every single... go check Navi's health bars on every wave when Rallic wants to go do something. Unless it's specifically a disaster moment where something's going wrong, it's almost always prepped. Where the person will stop using cooldowns. They'll not maybe like push the wave, and they're willing to like drop whatever the fuck they're doing to just go and be like, my jungler needs me, and fucking run in and do some stuff. It's rather impressive. Or they will use their spells, get push and move with prio.
By the
It's
way,
kind of impressive.
The whole time you were talking, I was just thinking, like, you know how funny it is that you can ask you could ask a question in an interview, right, with a player, like after a game, like, so do you guys consciously, play around Relic? Is that a game plan thing? Like, we just understand intrinsically it's a Relic team and we play around that, or is that something that just sort of naturally fell in place during scrim blocks or whatever? But instead, you get Janiro going, it must have felt really bad when First Blood happened. How did you guys recover? Because that was a crazy game. And it's like, oh, brilliant. Yeah, that's a mute from me. Yeah. So, I by the way, like, I know we've talked a lot in the last few episodes about how dog shit the production is. No one even bothers bringing up how bad the interviews are, but they are getting... If there is a bottom of the barrel, there's a hole in that barrel, Keire, because... Spoiler alert, there's another trench underneath the barrel that it's sat on top of, and it does go, in fact, a few inches deeper, because I've seen it.
I'm not commenting at all on that, because I make a habit of not, like, talking to my colleagues like that. But I will say, like, there was something on Twitter recently, which was... some people chiming in and saying, like, what, like, these mid-series interviews are really unprofessional.
Oh, Valakir. Valakir.
It's so unprofessional, like, interviewing people, like, on stage, like, after games, especially
So
like
weird.
54 minutes. Like, I need people to understand that, like, players and coaches, especially for the ones on stage. So there are broadcast obligations that you have for a certain amount of interviews per broadcast, per split, and then stuff like post-game PGL and external content, whatever. I'm not sure what it is for this split. But in terms of the ones which happen on stage, I'm pretty sure that teams and coaches and whatever can always say no to them. There's something which is kind of outside the regular catchment, because there's obviously understandably some very stressful situations which can happen there and things which can affect like competitive just nature of things. And also worth noting as well, even if you do take those interviews as well, they give you the time you would lose back anyway in terms of prep time for the next game. So that in particular, I actually think they're doing a great job of putting those interviews out there, and like seeing criticism against that, I just don't think people realize what they're talking about.
I don't know, I think it's a bit weird. As far as you're going to do those interviews, you should just like be like, oh, if Mundo's open, are you going to pick it next game and just see what they say?
No. There's a difficulty in actually getting good answers out of them, but I actually do think that is the correct time to do it, because it gives you as close to stage live game kind of presence as you can get, and I think that's good.
Yeah, maybe I'm going to come in here, right, as like, and I hate all things production based, right? Okay, I actually think it's an execution problem. I actually think it's like a good idea, right? But here's the problem with it. It does require like some... Right, okay, I'm going to tell you about this, Rich, right? Because you just watched like the Super Bowl, yeah? Where like the reporter runs on the field to try and talk to the quarterback, and sometimes... Okay, there's two interviews that happened recently where that woman was trying to get the QB to ask questions, and he kept on ignoring her, and then he ignored her, right? That interview is now an absolute infamy, right? And then there was the interview with the young guy who, after they had just won the College Bowl national championship, and he's like talking to her afterwards, and he's not trying to run away where he's talking to her, and it's like one of the most like famous interviews probably like this year, where like he's like super engaged, giving great answers, stuff like that, right? Sometimes, like, you know what I mean, like sometimes the players and the managers and all that need to realize and have a wee bit of shake. They are part of the product, right? So when someone's coming to you with like the bullshit and you're like hanging the answers and all that. And I know they're not like media trained and stuff like that, right? But I'm not media trained, right? But I care. I can pretend and look like I care all the time. And if I can do it, right, so can they, right? And they get paid
That's the
to.
trick. I just
I,
pretend.
I don't even get paid for that.
I mean,
right?
I think it's like the
I think
NFL
it's
one. I'm pretty
nonsense.
sure she even says to him like, "We're live and it's on Fox. So you have to give me." I think she literally tells him like he has to do it or something. There's
Yeah, he has to do it. Like, literally gets the M9 Beretta back in
Yeah.
his head. It's like, you must answer me
Yeah,
now,
she's like-
McKinnon, or you will die.
She literally says something like, "Well, actually, I'm live on Fox right now, so you have to answer." And he's like, "Oh, okay." But I do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's obviously a much broader topic, but I do think that the like players, not because like. In my opinion, most of the questions 90% of the time are dog shit anyway. They're complete trash. They're not.
But
They
that's
gives me the
execution.
impression that the person hasn't even watched the game that they're just interviewing the person about. Like that's genuinely what it feels like. But I do think players should make a fucking minimalist effort to just give like because most of these people are just zombies as far as I'm concerned. It's like, oh, who's that? Oh yeah, another zombie being interviewed. Like your brand does fucking matter. And by the way, I don't know if you saw this. This is after I'm pretty sure in week 3 or 4 after they won a game, Nemesis got interviewed on stage, and I was thinking, how is it even possible that this guy has been like streaming for the last however fucking long, like interacting with chat and whatever, like as if breathing air, like. But he is this bad in an interview. Like that interview was bad. Like not that he was saying anything stupid or like just the most unengaged, uninspired. Could not look more bored if he tried. And I'm like, this is just I don't know. If you want to be, I mean, it's a classic, right? But if you want to be likable, it's better to be cringe than to just be a robot. Like think of some of those ex-Peke interviews with Shocks. They were fucking cringe. I know, like incel gamer nerds will be like, "Oh, this is how cool guys talk to women." It's not, by the way, but at least he made an effort to try and do something to like be interesting, funny, different, whatever. Like,
But now you look back on them with rose-tinted glasses, and you can appreciate them what they were and what they were like trying to be, right?
yeah, sure.
Here's the ultimate like fucking coup de grace in this, right? At TI, this is one of the places that started. It was actually at World Cyber Games. They originally done it in Korea, but in a different style. They obviously done the Boatman interview, where like when the people get eliminated, someone had to go and talk to Machine, the guy that casts CS now. That's like this was one of his like big breakthrough things where he and his conduct during this. He wasn't a Dota guy, Rich, okay, but every single interview.
Mate, I knew Machine since COD. That guy's casted my games in COD 4. That's how far back that guy goes.
What a grinder, right? That guy that wasn't a Dota guy. He was a host, or he was trying to be a host. I can't remember, but he literally they were so good. Right, okay, and he literally had like thingy moments where like players were crying and stuff like that, and like folk from like Southeast Asia who were getting eliminated, right, were like in tears because they were going to get like hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they had realized like what, because they even after the loss they had realized I've actually just technically got my family out of poverty, and they're like fucking like crying and shit on it, and you know what I mean, and that he's like there handling it, and he does really really good, right. Imagine you got like some soulless husk up there, and like the person from Southeast Asia is like crying, and then he's like talking about like back home at the PC cafe, and he goes, "And what about the Sand King pick? Do you think the Sand King pick was good?" Like, and obviously that would inform what you. Sorry, I just got a fucking.
Well, funnily enough, one of those interviews did happen in League, which was
the Forgiven Pulse one is the
Forgiven Pulse one from way back in the day. And like, I have to say, look, I somewhat understand
like,
what happened to Pulse there.
Next
because
question.
Because basically what happened was, Forgiven said, "Look, I played like shit." Well, even the Cavs are like, "Look, this guy just doesn't look like he's playing well. Is he actually okay?" Because this is like when he was on MVP Forgiven performance and whatever. Goes up into the interview and he basically says that like I've been called up to fight for my country. I'm going into national service, and this was not so much happen in Europe at that point. We just didn't we didn't have players playing from countries which had national service, and basically Pulse followed up with, "So about the Caitlyn that game," or something along those lines like that, because I think he was just a little bit shell shocked by his interview, because sometimes you don't judge those situations right at the time. Funnily enough, actually Forgiven after that point said like, actually I appreciate it being on the game, so I actually ended up being okay with that. But obviously the community reception was like, okay, wow, yeah, it's really hard to judge some of the curveballs that get thrown at you with that.
Okay, 2 things. 1, that's the thing. that happened and whatever. 2, I could not disagree with Nymaera more, by the way. Like, if you are on stage and there's a guy, like, bawling his eyes out saying, that was probably my last ever game because I've been called up for military service, going,
Oh, no.
yeah, but what about that pick, though? What about that pick?
I'm just saying that
No,
some
but you
people
have-
do not deal well
Yeah, but
with
you
the
have to
curveballs.
be so far away with the fairies for that. Like, that is not a normal reaction. That is not. I know we can listen.
I'm sorry. I'm actually with Nymaera here. I actually feel so sympathetic to Pulse, right?
Oh yeah, so do I. So do I.
Because a player just springing that on you,
No,
right?
yeah, but okay,
that's impossible.
But
mate.
no. Multiple things can be true at once. I feel bad for him because he handled it horrifically, and because he was not mentally equipped, whatever it was. He was not
Careful
ready.
with your words there.
He was not ready and able to respond to in the correct way in the moment. So I have sympathy for that. He's put in a weird position. I don't want to say a difficult position because it's not a fucking difficult position. As soon as someone springs that on you, it's like, yeah, you don't have to think up a specific question like, oh, what's the Greek military like then? You just have to respond to what's happening in front of you, which is like, wow, I cannot believe that might be your last ever game. If it is, what an unbelievable legacy and way to go out. Like, because I think it was after it was H2K Fnatic, was it? Was it 3-0 versus Fnatic? No, he was wearing the white jersey. I can't remember. Anyway, it was after a win. It was definitely after a win. But yeah, it's not that difficult to pivot. It's really not.
Imagine he was like good at something from Turkey in the league at the same time or something. And he'd be like, and what do you think the implications would be if such and such player was to start their military service? Would you have 5v5 League of Legends? Winner keeps Cyprus? Like,
Yeah, wow, when you get to the fucking basic training, you're not gonna have internet. What do you mean it's your last game? Like, I mean, I don't know. It was.
It's actually like a player. Imagine in Korea, North Korea, and they're talking about like military service, and one of the players are just like rearing to go, and he's like, "Yes, I can't wait to go and fight for my country."
Bang. Can't wait to kill some people. Can't wait to get to Taiwan. Anyway, right, back to the games of League of Legends. So Na'Vi versus whoever they're playing. What do we think of that then? Prediction. Oh, MKOI. As this is going to be
MKOI.
the tightest, in my opinion, this is like the tightest on paper matchup. Which way are you actually leaning, Nymaera? What do you think?
Oh, we've not seen Na'Vi in an actual pressure best of 3.
That's a good point.
And I do think MKOI will get better as we get on, because I think they'll start to lock in mentally more, which I just don't think they were on regular split. But I think, okay, I'm going to judge it for now. Look, I think if they meet later into the bracket, MKOI would win. I think now Na'Vi will win. I think it'll be a 2-1. But I think this only gets more MKOI's favored as it goes on, as I think MKOI get back into form, I think.
What do you think, Keire?
Running it in my head, I can't believe I went on that Navi speech, because the more I think about it, I want to say MKOI. And I don't really believe in doing the whole thing, like, fuck it, like, just saying something for the sake of saying something.
Oh, I do that way too much, yeah.
Nah, I'm thinking about it. Nah, fuck it. Nah, MKOI, I think, like, I can't believe I gave that fucking speech earlier on. I actually think MKOI
Editors,
should
away.
win here. Nah, like, keep it in. Nah, I think MKOI probably should win here, now that I'm thinking about it a bit more. Because, like, you know, you've got the Jojo blowout mid, possibly. You've got the bot lane possible blowout. Then, like, Elyoya. Like, basically, what I'm basically wanting is I'm thinking, like, okay, Poby's going to have an extremely stable game. Jojo has, like, a downturn, and then they can just move with Rylic. But then I just think about, like, like, the depth of strategy, you know what I mean? Like, do I really want to see another Poby Akali game? You know what I mean? Like...
Oh, yeah, he had a real nightmare on that the last time.
And then, like, it gets so weird. The thing is it does. Remember, we used to go into playoffs and we'd be like, oh, no, it's so weird. We used to be like, oh, it's what Merwin got cooking. It's like fucking Iron Man came around, not Iron Man, fucking Fearless came around, right? And Merwin just stopped playing like all these silver bullets and stopped having like prepped picks, which was weird because he was one of the players who were like, oh, he's going to flourish. But he basically just turned into, and there's nothing wrong with this, what I'm about to say, a standard run-of-the-mill top laner. There's nothing wrong with that, right? But it is what he basically became. Now, I'm going to go for MKOI. I believe in adaptation. I believe in the forward progress. I believe in momentum. But I fucking also believe Rallick MVP. I think there's a chance Rallick could be the best player on the server and they still maybe lose as well, but that's by the by.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it doesn't games of League don't particularly work like this
2-1.
necessarily, but I actually think they're relatively well matched everywhere. Like in the jungle, I think, as I said, has probably been MKOI's best player, even though Rallick's probably, very possibly league MVP. I don't think there's a big delta right now between Polby and Jojo. Like, I don't think the odds are that Jojo's going to walk Polby or something. And
You actually think Jojo's better than Pope?
I mean, at his best, I think he's better than Polby,
Yeah,
but I don't.
Right now?
No, not right now.
I
So
think Pope's better than Jojo.
Yeah,
right
yeah,
now.
he's had a better split for sure. But this is what I'm saying. I think there's not big delta between the good players on these teams. Like, has Super been better than Sam D? Probably not. Like, maybe slightly higher highs, but definitely lower lows. So
Yeah.
I actually don't think there's a big delta in terms of recently shown ability. So far as there is, it's in Navi's favor. Let's put it that way. So I actually think this is on form. I think Navi should win this series. Obviously, we don't know how their weeks are going in terms of prep and stuff like that, but I'm gonna go with Navi because I think they're the team that have looked slightly better. And look slightly better player for player, and I just think they should win. And as I said, I didn't really learn anything from MKOI from that Vitality series. I do think that series has a bit of an asterisk next to it.
I did learn one thing. I think you can easily hang on one thing. I think you now looking at it, really need to keep into your mind the game 2. Now I know this is post tilt, but the MKOI and like the area denial comp that basically they played in terms of like with the Caitlyn and the Cassiopeia. If you're someone with high Jarvan, if you have high Jarvan priority, those are two immobile champions, but combined they make Jarvan's fucking life a nightmare, like an actual living nightmare. And Jarvan priority is so high, you need to know that like, oh, if I'm going to first pick this champ, right? They could go 1-2, like snap that. You know what I mean? Like you need to know that, and they had to reveal a bit of their hand that's in the pie slice. You know what I mean? And if you're Navi, you've got that clause. That also affects the other pick that Navi used with Aatrox. Aatrox hates Caitlyn Cassio, by the way. Like he likes Caitlyn because her DPS isn't the highest, and sometimes he can like navigate the team fight in such a way he can lifesteal frontline to out DPS her. But if you introduce a Cassiopeia in there, you're never doing that in a million years. Yeah. Like you're hating it. And the terrain scaling with the traps and stuff, like, so that's the only thing I would say that they had to kind of show.
Yeah. Very quickly before we go, there is one more series that we will talk briefly about, which is obviously Heretics versus GX. Yeah, not gonna lie, I'm not that enthralled by the prospect of watching this one. Yeah, that's gonna be a tough watch. That is gonna be a tough watch. So it's very quickly, guys. Who do you favor in this one? Nymaera, who do you like?
Oh, sorry.
I mean, it still is probably GX, right? But I wasn't happy with them versus Casey at all.
Doesn't Jackie's look on great form, isn't he?
Jackie's wasn't, but I don't think the team calls were good either. What the hell was that, Baron?
Rich talking about Jackie's again.
But I also, I mean,
give it a break, 40-year-old man.
I mean, I didn't love how Lot was playing on Ornn. He's a much better Sion player than he is on Ornn. I think he's something like 1-13 on the pick now.
Do you like Isma's Nash control? Did you like that?
No, I didn't particularly like that. So I think GX just looked really off.
By the way, just very briefly, that was one of the weirdest, most like beta Baron steals of all time. Like they're just all stood in the pit. What's his face just jumps out and misses his primary target. Like obviously nowhere near jungle. Jungler just walks up really slowly while they're all in the pit and just clicks. Yeah.
And then also like the whole team comms of like just Casey just go, what are they doing? And just laughing at them afterwards as well. Just don't let GX see that on socials because holy fuck,
they didn't even. But
significant aura loss.
If you have, I will never advocate that you should have to watch a GX game. But honestly, if you haven't seen it, just watch that Baron seal. That is the weirdest Baron seal. Like it's like playing against AI. They do not move. They do not even try and stop him from getting into the pit. He just wanders up presses
Oh no,
smite.
they try. They just completely whiffed.
Well,
it.
yeah, he
Didn't,
whiffed
didn't
over the wall.
didn't Lot go over the wall
Yeah,
and
he
just like
did.
not hit W and just really messed it
No,
up.
but he
So,
hit someone
yeah.
else instead. I think he didn't hit. I think he missed Yike and hit support. Maybe I can't remember. He completely missed, and Razork just in slow motion just walked around the side of the wall and just smited, and it was just like, okay, well,
It was, yeah, either way, it was a mess, as we call it in the business. So yeah, that wasn't great. And then the next game after, like, Busio just outplayed the hell out of them, and I think Isma had a very poor game on the Jarvan. So, I mean, sorry, I just accidentally muted myself. This is why I think I was much less high on GX coming into this split. And you can watch back to previous episodes where I just have never seen GX win in high pressure scenarios. I've just never seen them actually live up to a promise. And I fear, folks, I fear whether they're in a similar situation again.
but it is Heretics they're playing, so yeah, Keire,
Yeah. So okay, so that's more about the overall playoffs bracket.
Sure.
I still think they destroy Heretics because earlier I said, I think Fnatic are the worst team in playoffs. I actually think it's Heretics. Heretics look really not good. Sheo looks pretty good.
Do not deceive
Yeah.
me on how low a bad Fnatic can be. I have seen
I was just something in
lows.
our ring because I think that
I'm
Stend
joking.
is playing really not well right now. But yeah, okay, maybe they're slightly better than Fnatic, but yeah, it's still not
No,
going to
no,
be
I'm jesting. I was only fucking with you.
how sad
I
is
think
it, by the
that's
way,
fair.
that I'm not some LR simp, but that we didn't at least get to see LR in series play against one of these teams, and instead we have to watch fucking Heretics and GiantX just offer absolutely nothing. Like, holy smokes! But yeah, Keire, you like GX here?
Yeah, GX 2-0.
Fair enough. I'll go.
By the way,
I'm actually
Sten's
going.
fucking
I'm going.
quality you studied.
I'm going Heretics. I just think.
Oh,
I'm not.
fuck
No, I'm
off,
not. No, I'm
Rich.
not. No, I'm not. No, I think I'm so pissed
You
off.
sounded so affronted by that.
No, because I was about to put a fucking money bet on it for him just to check how much he actually believes it.
no.
And that's about it. Like one, like seriously, like I would be like 100 quid, Rich. If you believe it, you'll take the 100 quid.
No, the thing is, I was thinking about just how bad I was thinking like, oh my god, Jackie's might be the worst laning mid I've ever seen. And then I'm like, Seren's pretty terrible at laning as well, though, on an LEC level. And I'm like, oh, yeah. And then I was going for it in my head. I was like, this is really bad, though. And then remembered what the inverse was on the other team. And I'm like, wait, that's really bad as well. I don't know. I guess I've got to go with the team that has no engine in bot lane, I guess. But yeah, it's not looking pretty either way. Let's put it that way.
Speaking of military service, knows the way to do his at the end of the season.
Oh, is
Siren?
he?
Yeah, I think Nora and Junna both said that this is their last year. Yeah.
Oh, the year to make it count. Then, how many trophies can they rack up before they depart? Anyway, that is going to be it for this week, guys. Because of how weird the LEC schedule is, I guess there'll be an episode after the round after this one because they just run them consecutively. I'm pretty sure. So it's going to be
Something like
impossible
that,
to get an
yeah.
episode out in between the rounds. I think there's like 4 straight days in a row with over 2 different rounds. So yeah, it'll be the day after that. Anyway, thank you guys all for watching, and we'll see you next time.